strikes. The pitch. Swing and a long drive. Deep left field. Going.
Sporty good times.
All right, Matt. Matt, did you know that football was back? I feel like I just need to say this right out the gate.
Football is back, baby.
Football is 100% back. I got my Najee Harris jersey on, rolling with the Steelers today. And I need to process this out loud because about 2.5 hours ago, so earlier today, I posted a reel on our Instagram with Cordell Stewart. Last week, we were talking to our friend Tommy from Random MLB Stars. I mentioned that I have this memory, this vivid memory of watching this 1995 Steelers film on repeat. I'm probably like 6 years old, popping it in the VHS. It's called The 60-Minute Men, and it's this NFL film's like hour-long special. I vividly remember this clip of Cordell Stewart in the middle of that. It's like when he was a rookie, he hit the league. He was the Swiss Army knife. It's like he sprinted really fast so that Taysom Hill could try to also sprint really fast. I don't really know how you would say that because it's not like Cordell was walking around. He was running around. And so I posted that today. 2.5 hours ago, I get a DM from Cordell Stewart. Cordell Stewart was DMing me today about 2.5 hours ago. And he was like, hey, man, that's awesome. Anytime you post more clips, like I'll make sure I put them on my Instagram. If you do anything, you tweet anything, I'll retweet it. And I was like, what the? And so Matt, actually, I call you.
You called me. You were sweaty. I mean, it was just a phone call, but I knew you were sweaty and you were out of breath.
I left him on red for like 5 minutes because I was like, what the? I was like, what do I do? This is Cordell Stewart. Like literally a core memory I share to the world. And who other than Cordell Stewart reaches out to me and is like, hey, this is awesome. So Matt's just like, Matt's words to me are literally like, all right, you got to treat this like if, when you're trying to build a fire. Remember Tom Hanks when he's, on the island and you got to blow on it. You can't just 0 to 100. You got to kindle this fire. You got to let it build.
Yeah, like, you don't want it. You don't want it to go out. You got it, but you got to be gentle.
I got a small spark right now. There's no flames. Yeah. So
well, it's funny because you post that video, that reel of Cordell Stewart, hoping that people like you and I react to it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And you never think in a million years that Cordell Stewart / would reply to it.
Never in a million years would I think that / himself would be like, hey, this is tight. So that happens. Call Matt. I'm freaking out. Eventually, I reach back out to Cordell Stewart because he DM'd me. So I reach back out.
First name basis.
Me and Slash just messaging back and forth. I reach back out and I'm just like, yeah, man, this is great. Like, come to find out, I don't know if we talked about this a little bit in the past, but there was a lot of stuff that happened in the early 2000s. There was a rumor that came out that Cordell Stewart was gay. It was like this whole thing that circulated for a long time, and it kind of like ruined the trajectory of his career. I think there was like defamation suits, all this stuff. And so if you look at his stats, it's like he had these great years, late 90s into early 2000s, and it just like he disappears kind of early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And he's a Steelers starting quarterback. So anyway, I guess he was reaching out to say like a lot of the bigger programs or networks don't really replay a lot of his clips, or you don't see them very often. So basically he has to do his own advocating and reach out and like, so I don't know if this is all the time, but sometimes when fans post stuff, like I tagged him in it, he'll then reach out and just be like, yeah, like I'll, repost this if you ever do any more. So that was kind of interesting. In a way I was like, oh, it's kind of sad, but also I was like, this is awesome. Now I feel like this great sense of Steeler pride and responsibility of being like, all right, I told him, I was like, you got boots on the ground over here, buddy. Like, anytime I won't do it, it's not going to become just a Cordell Stewart account. That'd be kind of weird. But anytime I think about it, space them out a little bit, put some Cordell out there. So I know you probably talked to like 6 different NFL legends today, but I got to talk to one and it was really special. So
it was important, a very important one to you in particular.
Very important. Like I said, literally sharing a core memory of who my quarterback was. The first quarterback that I ever remember really rooting for as a Steeler quarterback. And then he reaches out to me the day I do that. So pretty wild.
It's interesting to like, because he's a guy that I always think of like what if he was playing now? Would he be would he be Lamar Jackson? Like, would he be that type of player?
Yeah.
Because he played receiver, played in the backfield. He also punted like 5 or 6 times in his career. Like, and they moved him around a lot. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting to think about what he would be today, because there wasn't a lot of Cordell Stewart's playing, even in the late 90s. There just wasn't.
And there was a big gap after him. I don't,
Yeah.
there wasn't a whole lot of that going on until like what we know now, where it's much more,
Yeah.
the athletic quarterback is much more accepted, and not just accepted, but like sought after. Whereas maybe that wasn't always the case. It was more of maybe an anomaly or an outlier if you had a really athletic quarterback, just kind of a bonus. But yeah, that was wild, and it has definitely rekindled my juices, my flames for the Steelers as we're going into the season. And the boys look good. It's going to be a QB battle for the Steelers, but all 3 quarterbacks, Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, and Mason Rudolph. I got to make sure I mention Mason Rudolph because my friend Gunnar he makes the joke that Mason's going to be the starter every time I see him. It's like a dad joke that you just say every time, and I kind of can't tell if he's being serious or not. And so I'm always like, yeah, man, yeah, but I don't know if he's joking or not. I think he's joking, but I think he went to Oklahoma State. He's not joking. He really thinks Mason should be the starter. So,
I think Mason's getting moved sometime soon. I think he's going to be on a new team sometime.
Is this intel? Is this intel? Or
no,
is this,
not from me. I read that on Twitter today.
Oh, okay, Twitter. Yeah, Twitter helps.
It's Twitter intel.
Okay, cool. Well, I just wanted to share that I'm super excited about tonight's episode. We have kind of been building up this for a while. We're actually going to get to interview one of the people who had a hand in inspiring me to even broach the subject of us doing this, Matt. So I want to do it justice. So you're going to have to repeat after me. Okay, I'm going to start this. You just got to go with it. All right, ready? Big Daddy. Big Daddy. Big Daddy. Big Daddy. Y'all, it's Brad Ellis in the house.
Hey, I love it, man. I kind of what's the guy's name, the closer for the Mets? Have you seen his walkout
Is
music?
it the Hispanic music and the
Edwin,
people are just getting
Edwin something?
Yeah. I keep watching, seeing that on Twitter.
I mean, second to that introduction right there, I think would be
Big Daddy. Wait, so you got to tell me where does that come from? What's the real origin of the Big Daddy?
Oh, you haven't heard the Big Daddy story?
Dude, I know that there's probably so many stories that are like ghost runners, like known or that I just maybe don't know.
I mean, I think that I kind of self-proclaimed myself Big Daddy a few times jokingly, but when it really started sticking was me and my friends. We were at the casino, Jake being one of them, and we were playing blackjack at like the $5 table. And the $5 table is always like the most crowded because everyone's cheap and just wants to hang out. There's like one $5 table in the whole casino. Yeah. And so we were on the table, but there's so many people behind us. There's this one guy, I call him the Asian version of Prince. Like he just looked like was like this very stoic, like very mysterious looking dude, just in the background.
The Asian formerly known as Prince.
Yeah, exactly. Just right. Like we were playing for like 45 minutes. He hadn't said a word. And all of a sudden I was like, I don't know. I had like a 16 or something. I was like, I'm going to hit it. And out of nowhere, this guy just goes, hit it one time for Big Daddy. And from that moment on, Big Daddy was kind of like, the thing. It was like, we got to go by Big Daddy. And obviously, I think at that time I had one child, I'd had Hattie, my daughter.
So you were a father.
So I was a daddy, so, but anyway, it just kind of, has spurred on from there.
Hit it one time for Big Daddy.
Hit it one time for Big Daddy. And I mean, and then right after that, like this Asian Prince, like he just always like he was very talkative after that. So I don't know exactly what like that. He just needed to say one thing and then he was ready to go. So
have you seen this guy since?
No,
okay.
I don't frequent the casinos as much as I used to, admittedly, for better and for worse, but mostly better.
Sure. Right.
But no, I haven't seen him since.
Yeah, Matt, we went 2 years ago, maybe around my birthday. We went to the casino, and this is, I guess, old Casino Brad days were a few years ago. So I missed kind of that wave, but to see this man it's like he got in there and put on this old pair of boots that he's had, and they've been in the closet, and they fit on real nice, and he's like, I remember how to do this. And
yeah, it's like, oh, I miss you, old friend.
He's like, I know where this goes. So you walked away with a handful of, nothing to shake a stick at. It was some good change that night. So
you got to hit it with
a few clams.
Oh, yeah, some clams.
I think I forget. I did do really well that night, didn't I, Harry? Yeah,
you did. I mean, gassing you up.
No, I really do. I mean, I know that gambling is obviously addicting, and so
sure.
Whoever
if you have a problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Yeah, bets off. Yeah. But man, I love going to the casino because it's one of the only places as a married man that you can like talk to a stranger unassumedly. That, or like a sports bar. Like that's about it. Like if you're watching a game at a sports bar, you can talk to random strangers, but like there's not very many places you just go up to people and just like strike up a conversation. And one of them is the casino while you're playing together. So I just love getting to meet all these random people there and hit it one time for Big Daddy. So
that's where the best stories come from. Do you feel like have you always had that trait of like wanting to people watch and like strike up random convos?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
My dad is like the most people person ever. And so like I think he's instilled that in me. I'm not nearly as outgoing as he is, but I really enjoy just being around people. Like there's sometimes where I'll find myself even like in like sports games, like when you're at the event and it's like a huge game, and like I find myself looking at the people going down the aisle because I'm like fascinated by people. It's
very fascinating.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it's like Patrick Mahomes could be on the field, but I could be staring at this guy's jeans walking down the aisle. It's like interesting.
They're probably nice jeans.
Nice jeans though, dungarees.
Yeah,
so
we took the kids to the Atlanta Aquarium Friday, and I'll say that's an all-time collection of people there. Just all
you never know you're gonna get an aquarium.
All shapes and sizes, colors and creeds, like everything. It was I mean, you could just sit there at the entrance and just watch the people coming in. And
was it pretty packed?
Yeah, it was Friday afternoon. It was
in the
pretty
summer.
busy. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right before school starts back, and
Yeah.
So everybody's.
How many kids do you have, Matt?
I have 2. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I have a son that's about to turn 1. So
okay, nice. Yeah. That's a fun age to go to the aquarium. Yeah.
Yeah. The 1-year-old just kind of chills, but the 3-year-old, right. she's all about it. So
yeah. Funny enough, when our firstborn turned 1, we took her to the aquarium here in Kansas City. And looking back, it was like $60 for the 3 of us to go, and it was like, why she doesn't remember any of that, So
you're right.
But yeah, like once it's so fun when they get older, man. It's just like it's just a blast. So that's cool.
Going back to your nickname, Big Daddy. So like myself, like you're a bigger guy too. I'm a bigger guy, and inherently everybody always calls you, hey, big man, hey, big dog, hey, things like that.
Big goes in front of it.
That's something that, like, I don't think Harry could ever appreciate, but like you always get called something that's in reference to your size, but it's always endearing too.
Right.
99% of the time it's endearing. But that's just, that's the cross we have to bear, of good, cool.
Absolutely.
Nicknames.
I mean, it's better than being tiny or, whatever. But in high school, somebody nicknamed me Triple B, Big Bad Brad. So I was like, I like that, that's kind of cool. Triple B, but there's always those kind of things. You just kind of have to take them, as long as no one's, throwing around the F word. That's all.
That's
good. I'm okay with it. Big is just fine. Call me Big all day. Like Big Daddy's good. Fat Daddy's like a firework, discount fire stand or something like that. But
I would much rather prefer being known as the big guy than the short guy, or, something like that.
Right. So. Exactly, man. Yeah. And I appreciate your guys' relationship and friendship because we got a big guy and Harrison's not skinny by any means. You're not like a tiny guy, but
just an average guy.
That's kind of how me and Jake are. So it's kind of like, hey, look at a mirror here.
It makes a great duo, I will say. It's like Farley a great Spade, brotherly. Yeah, exactly. So. I just saw my to-be father-in-law actually sent me a clip the other day of Chris Farley. It's one of he's on Letterman. Have you seen the one where he just like blows in?
Oh, and he's like runs in from the back.
He throws that dude in the dumpster.
No, I don't remember that part.
He literally picks this dude up out of the crowd.
It's crazy. Did I send that to you too?
You might have, but yeah, Preston sent it to me too, and I was dying.
His athleticism was, so underrated. Like people
Oh
don't
my
realize how
gosh.
crazy athletic Chris Farley was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he could do cartwheels. I mean,
Right.
it's insane.
Right.
yeah. But when he went out, because I guess there's not a whole lot of space from like the stage, walking out the side door, and then the dumpster's literally right there. He just carries the dude out, throws him to the dumpster, runs back inside, losing his mind, and he just goes to the stage. And then he's like barely out of breath too. That's what's crazy to me is like
Right.
he's a big dude throwing himself around, and he's just like, yeah, that's what he does.
Golly, that's
You know?
amazing.
Yeah.
What a guy. Oh man, that's great.
So I will. A lot of our listeners know context, but obviously, Brad, me and you are friends through a lot of mutual friends here.
Yeah.
You are like we're an aspiring podcast co-host. Me and Matt are. You already have a podcast that's 3 years running. Is that what we discussed the other day, right?
Yeah. Kind of.
When did y'all hit your milestone?
I'm so bad at that kind of stuff. I think like a month or two ago.
Yeah, 3 years, dude. That's a long time.
Yeah. I think it was May.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah. I remember episode 52 was like right before my son was born, which my son was born on May 5th. So
yes.
So yeah, it was probably sometime in May.
I remember that because that was right after I kind of moved to KC, and
yeah, we recorded at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah,
you were there for that, but you weren't working. Oh yeah,
I was kind of. I think I was working that day, but I was like helping out just because y'all were there, and I wanted to kind of be around, and it was cool. But yeah, when I remember when we first met, we were deep in the throngs of COVID, and Matt, everybody was playing pickleball was like a huge like they still play a lot of pickleball now, but like they were playing like every night. It seemed like,
it was awesome
till late. It was I mean, there's probably so many examples of things like this where, as hard as COVID was, there were also situations where things happened that will never happen again. Yeah. Like it will never be exactly like it was then when all of us would go out till almost 12 o'clock just playing pickleball and trying to. The park that we go to, this one park was not too far from where I was living at the time, and it has like the light sensors that start beeping past a certain hour, and so somebody would always have to like sprint and make sure they hit the button so that we didn't get the lights turned out on us. But
and that park was in like a random neighborhood, and it was like the only park that we found that wasn't like locked up. Remember, they locked up all the parks for a while.
Is that why you were there? Because
that's why we always went there.
Okay.
They had pickleball lines and they were not locked up, and so like. Yeah, it was like in this random neighborhood, and we were probably yelling and screaming until 11 o'clock at night. I'm sure these neighbors are so annoyed with us.
There might have been one moment you had to contend with a lady who was upset. I think there was one lady or something.
Oh yeah, that was a different part. Yeah.
Oh okay.
Oh man, she was so adamant about like, you guys need to change the ball you're using. The ball you're using is too loud, and
I mean,
you're just being. I'm like, come on. It was at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon too. I was like, we're just having fun here.
The ball you're using is too loud.
Yeah, there's different balls. You need to look it up. There's certain balls that are quieter than others.
There are marshmallows that are about the size of a ball that you can use too.
Is that an HOA approved ball?
No.
Yeah, exactly. Have you heard of a pine cone? Those actually bounce better than you think. And no,
it helps your reflex.
One of those funny things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, a lot of the friends that I knew were through Kanakuk. That's how I met my landlord now, my lord of the land, Jake Triplett. And Jake and Brad have, I guess I'm actually curious because I don't know fully y'all's origin story of like when y'all first really became friends. And was that through K-Life stuff?
Yes. So my wife, Catherine, she worked for K-Life, which is a nonprofit ministry through K-Life, kind of like a Young Life for Kanakuk kind of thing in Kansas City. She did that 4 years. I think on her third year, Jake started working with her. So it was Jake, my wife, and then our friend Peter that all worked together. And they each have a house. Like the guys had a house, and then the girls, quote unquote, had a house. But it was just me and Catherine that lived in that house, and so we lived next door to each other. And I remember meeting Jake like when he came to interview, and I'd always heard like you guys are like Jake Triplett's like the K West version of Brad Ellis. Like you guys are so similar in so many ways. And then I meet this guy, and he's like this scrawny little like redheaded kid, and I was like, this guy, like, talking about like the Big Daddy thing. I was like, how is this guy anything like me? Like, right. We do not. I was like, I can't imagine us being the same. But I remember that first night we hung out, we went to like some leadership meeting or something, and we were driving back from it, and just out of the blue, I decided to like roll down my window and just like mess with, sidewalk, people walking on the sidewalk, and just like asking them random non sequitur questions, like, hey, do you know where to find the place where the thing is? and like just like messing with them, and
Yeah.
people be like, what's going on? It's like the thing on the 45th, the
Little Kyle
45s?
Mooney.
Yeah, exactly. And I just remember Jake like totally ran with it, totally was like I didn't even have to tell him like this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
He rolled out his window and messed around with them too. So that's kind of how the friendship was born. And then we just I think halfway through his first year of K Life, I quit my corporate job to work for myself, and in the process was also working from home, and just got to spend so much more time with them, going to the casino and everything else, and just creating so many memories.
The
We
legend
played
was born.
a bunch of MLB Slugfest, which I know
Oh
Tommy
my
from
gosh.
last week, he would appreciate all.
He would appreciate
talk about
that.
random MLB star. I think it was MLB Slugfest 2001 on GameCube back in the day, and I mean it was like it was awesome. It was so much fun. Jake would always be the Padres, and
Why?
I don't know. Like they were really poorly ranked on there, but they were really good. Like Ryan Klesko was raking
Oh
up,
yeah.
and I think I would try to be like the Angels or something with Jim Edmonds and Troy Glass and all those guys.
The Cardinals were really good in that game, I feel like, which is surprising that Jake wouldn't be the Cardinals, being a Missouri guy and being a Cardinals fan growing up. But
I don't know. Yeah, he always chose. And we like eventually, us like we started betting on the game, like $5, and we would win. And
gotta
Peter would be
spice
like
it
double or
up.
nothing, whatever. It was great. So
yeah, that's so awesome.
So Brad, you grew up in KC or the KC area?
Yes, south of Olathe is what it's called.
Close to where I live now.
Olathe.
Yeah, really like right down the street from where Harrison lives now.
What high school did you go to in Olathe?
I went to Olathe South.
Okay.
And so, but Olathe North is where Darren Sproles graduated from.
I was about to say I'm an Olathe North guy.
Darren Sproles, they were a powerhouse, man.
Yeah. Darren Sproles is one of my favorite players I've ever had the pleasure of being around.
Oh yeah, he would have been in Philly when you were in Philly.
Yeah, so he was in Philly.
Right.
Yeah. He wasn't there when I first got there, but we signed him, I think, going into the 2014 year. But yeah, one of my all-time favorite players to ever be around.
Oh, he's electric. He's a stud. I mean, he's awesome. He graduated from North, and Isaiah Simmons as well, the linebacker for the Cardinals now, played at Clemson. But I remember my sister was the same age as Darren Sproles, and growing up, my sister did like some peewee version of cheerleading, and I remember my dad saying, he would go and watch my sister's game, and there was this little black kid that just never got tackled, and eventually like there was a rule that like was formed of like he can only touch the ball 5 times a game or something like that, because like he literally just, and I remember watching him in high school because he was a big deal obviously in high school. It was the same way. It was just like absolute domination. So he's one of my favorites. Actually, I have a running bet with Jake. It's like kind of in perpetuity. Matt, tell me what you think of this. It's a bet that I think that Darren Sproles is going to be in the Hall of Fame someday, and Jake doesn't. And so I don't know, because I think he has the most all-purpose yards, in the history of the game. But is he really a Hall of Famer?
Man, that's tough, because he's a kind of a gadget player on offense, and then an electric special teams player, like one of the best return men of all time. Yeah, I mean, historically, there's like guys that were return specialists haven't made it in, but I mean, I selfishly would argue that he does belong in. Right. He's such a dynamic player for so long, over I think 10, 12 years, whatever he played. Like, so I would say he should get in, but I also don't think he will get in, if that makes sense.
Just being honest, like my heart says one thing, my head says something else. Yeah, totally. That's kind of how I feel too.
The thing that was so impressive about him was just, I mean, he's obviously he's short. I mean, he's 5'6", right, with cowboy boots on, and but he was such a pro in how he approached every day, how he came in the building, like. And we got him. He had already played for the Chargers and the Saints. Like he was like 8-9 years into his career when we signed him. And you could tell that this guy trains at an elite level. He takes care of his body. He eats right. Because the Saints had cut him. Like he was a really good kind of third down back, receiving option, return guy for the Saints. But the Saints cut him, I think, thinking like he was near the end of his career. And that was in 2013, and he ended up playing till 2019. Yeah. So like that just speaks to like how
his longevity was insane.
He prepares, and in fact, like you think a small guy can't hold up, just because of the amount of hits you take. And but yeah, I mean, he's been very hard to tackle his whole life. So he's probably saved himself a
Right,
few hits
right.
every game, just by making people
True.
miss.
Yeah.
But
My-
yeah, one of my all-time favorites for sure.
My first Darren Sproles moment, when K-State was really good. It was
Talk
2004.
about win, man. They are.
No, I mean,
are really good.
in 2004, though, they
Just
were
kidding.
like top. They might have been number 12
Yeah.
or top 10 when they came into College Station. It was my dad was coaching at A&M. And what was the quarterback's name? You might remember it. He was number 9, 2004.
Michael Bishop.
Maybe. I don't know. But
El Roberson.
that's who it
Maybe it's El
was. That's who it
Roberson.
was. It was
Yeah,
L. Roberson.
Bishop was right before that, I think.
Yeah, it was L. Roberson. But I just remember it being the loudest football game that I've ever been to. And it was like in the first drive, because of the 12th man, K-State had to, I don't know if it was the first drive, they had to burn one for sure, but they burned all their first half timeouts in the first quarter because they couldn't like get on the same page or hear each other. And
Wow.
in that game, it was, I think everybody's just kind of off. It was just one of those nights for K-State where everybody's off. And Darren Sproles took a punt it hit his face mask and he fumbled the ball at he was backed up to his own 2 and it hit him in the face. And then we got the ball at the 4 and went in and scored. Ended up winning that game. It was a pretty big upset at the time, but that was my year of the Big 12 too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of tempted to just sit back and I feel like Brad, you and Matt can talk about football for the entirety of an hour and a half and you'd have a great time. So I'm definitely going to have to, at some point, we're going to have to get you guys in the same room so y'all can do that. Cause it's
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
he's like a walking encyclopedia. Go ahead.
who me or him?
Well, both y'all are, but
No,
Matt, you definitely are.
I think Matt, I heard your stories about skipping school back in the day to go to watch the NFL draft. You are way more intense than I am. that is awesome. Back before the NFL draft was a big deal. Now it's a huge deal everywhere. Back in the day, it wasn't.
That's true.
Still so
you're ahead of your time, man.
No, yeah. I'm a regular season. I'll be excited. I didn't even watch the Chiefs on Saturday. I didn't tune into them or anything. So
that's fair.
I'll be excited once they get going and everything.
Yeah.
So you're a K-State fan, but you're also a KU fan?
Correct. Yeah.
How's that work?
Yeah. I know you're from Tuscaloosa, so maybe you don't really understand.
Dude, that was so perfect. I knew I wanted to see the pain and the torment of what that was when you get asked that question, how to answer that. Yeah.
I think it only makes sense if you are in my situation.
Sure.
K-State fans don't understand, KU fans don't understand. I think there is comparable things in a lot of different states. Let's say I know guys that went to Auburn that are big Alabama fans. I know, guys that Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, there's just something there's this difference in state school versus, Auburn, whatever, land grant university kind of.
All right, we're back. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty there. Brad was in the middle of explaining the origin of his love for KU basketball. And I think you said maybe they were really good one year. That kind of started.
Well, yeah.
Love.
So
true for most years.
I grew up a huge KU fan because my dad was a huge KU fan and grew up going to a ton of games. Because a friend of mine in elementary school, I don't even think I realized how lucky I was, but his grandparents had season tickets and I probably went to 10 games a year, tons.
Oh, wow.
And so, I didn't realize how awesome that was. But yeah, grew up huge KU basketball fan, ended up going to K-State. And that year, K-State, my freshman year, K-State was really good. And they ended up being number 3 in the nation, playing KU on Big Monday or whatever it was. And I remember not wearing KU or K-State to the game because K-State fans hate KU. KU fans don't like K-State, but KU fans always hate Mizzou so much. That's their big rivalry.
Right.
And so that's why it wasn't a big deal for me to kind of root for both teams, whatever. But I remember thinking maybe I'm going to convert to a K-State fan. And then I remember literally, I think the first tip, they get the ball, KU does, they throw it, Tyrell Reed throws an alley-oop to Marcus Morris and Marcus Morris throws it down. And instinctively, before I even thought about it, I just yelled and I was like, yes, in the K-State student section, which I was scared not for my life truly,
Sure.
but I watched people take full Gatorade bottles and throw them at KU fans. They were very hostile. And so, but ever since then I realized I'm I'm not ever going to give up that fandom no matter what. So, but I loved K-State. I rooted for them in football when I was there. They were really good. I was actually, you know, I'm not going to say friends, but I was acquaintances with Colin Klein. And so, you know, we led worship nights together every once in a while in college, and he's just an awesome guy. And so it's easy to root for somebody like that,
Yeah.
especially when they're winning. So it was really fun to go to those games, but overall, just always going to be a KU basketball over everything else.
Wait, I don't want to blow past this. Did you say you used to lead worship nights with Colin Klein?
Correct. Yeah.
He's a musician.
Enough to lead worship with. I mean, he wasn't great, but good enough. Yeah. So he was roommates with a friend of mine that I kind of knew from Keokuk. Lee is his name, and Lee kind of just got randomly connected with these guys, and one of them happened to be Colin Klein, and Kyle Klein, his brother, and BJ Finney. I don't know if you know that name. He's a center in the NFL.
Yeah.
So,
Steelers.
Steelers BJ Finney.
Oh yeah, that's right. Of course. So, you know, all those guys, and yeah, it was just cool. Like, so it was like a small group of probably like 15, 20 people. It wasn't like a big, like all campus worship night with Colin Klein and Brad Ellis or anything like that.
Y'all are on the flyer.
yeah, exactly. Hey, yeah, come to the quad tonight. Yeah.
Look how many people tore off our little thing. They're coming. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that was so fun to like be friends with, you know. And then Tyler Lockett, I remember Tyler Lockett played on the same intramural team as one of my friends. And so like, you know, stuff like that. It was a baller. It was a fun time to be a K-State fan, because I think my senior year, they won baseball, basketball, and football in the Big 12. So like,
it's a good year.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they co-owned the Big 12 basketball championship with KU, of course, but still pretty good for K-State. So
it is good. Did you say Tyler Lockett was an A1 athlete, Matt?
Yes, he is. Yeah,
he signed Matt's agency.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
We have Isaiah
things about him.
Yeah, we have Isaiah Simmons too. You mentioned earlier from Olathe.
Oh, cool.
So
heck yeah, locking down those Kansas boys.
That's right.
Love it.
Awesome. So that's interesting. I mean, once you explained it all, it makes sense how you could be a fan of both, right? So it definitely. That's hard, not sarcasm. Though, like, it does make sense to me now.
Because KU fans are like, well, why? If you like KU so much, why didn't you go to KU? And K-State fans are like, well, why did you decide to come here if you don't care that much about K-State? You know, it's like, I don't know. It's just different vibes. Sure. I really do compare it to the same as like A&M versus Texas or something like that, where it's just like the culture is so different one versus the other. And I really like culture at K-State. So, but yeah, anyway.
That makes sense. I mean, educationally, you wanted what K-State had to offer versus what KU had to offer. And it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So
I love that you and your dad still go too. I think whenever you're at a KU basketball game with your dad, still doing that after however many years, I think that's awesome.
I think it was last season, so like 2 seasons ago, my dad finally, for the first time in his life, bought season tickets. And of course, right after he buys the season tickets, it's like, hey, it's COVID, and you know, it's only going to be 1/8 full or whatever. Yeah. And so our first season that we went to these games, it was like we were in our own row. Like it was like the weirdest experience. Whoa. But it still was like, it felt like it was a home field or home court advantage, even though it was this tiny thing. But yeah, it's so much fun. My dad and I mean, that's one of the things we definitely share is KU basketball. And were you at the game where they got in a big fight? No, I wasn't at that one.
Was that K-State versus KU?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I remember that.
I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, I wish that would have been something else.
That was
my dad went to the game in Manhattan. There was a game where K-State won and the students stormed the court, and the KU coach, I believe, like punched one of the KU or K-State like students or something. It was kind of crazy.
Oh, whoa.
So my dad was at that game, but no, I haven't seen anything too crazy like that.
Yeah, your dad just knocking out kids.
Was Frank Martin the basketball coach when you were at K-State?
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, he was at South Carolina when I was there.
What a guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's a football guy. Yeah, he doesn't know it, but he's a football coach. He's been on the wrong career path for the last 30 years.
Right.
Because he should have been a football coach.
When I saw him in public, he was so kind and like very, but at the same time, I think I heard rumors that like if they didn't fire him, like half the team was going to quit or something like that. Like he's just
Dude,
super intense.
He's a
just old.
maniac.
He's just old school, you know.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
to your point, like I was at several different events with him over my 3 years there, like golf tournaments or outings or functions, like, and could not be a more nicer, welcoming, gentle person to be around
Right.
off the court, you know. But he's definitely old school disciplinarian, in terms of how he coached the players. That's for sure.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I had a few classes. I sat next to Rodney Magruder in one of my classes. He's a K-State basketball guy, and then Jacob Pullen was in one of my classes, and so I tried to talk to him and like get to know those guys. But yeah, they were something else, man. I mean, it's just fun whenever. I mean, I guess like you're saying, Harry, like talking to an athlete like Cordell Stewart's like, this is amazing. Whereas Matt's like, yeah, I mean, he's just one of 15 I talked to today or whatever. But
I have to pry it out of Matt. I gotta be
Yeah.
like, hey man, come on, like I need this. Like you get to do this every day. You don't have to feel like, because when Matt presents it, I never feel like, okay, stop bragging, Braggerson. Like it's like, no, I want to hear these stories.
Right.
Speaking of Frank, the one time I went to an Auburn game, it was like right at the beginning of Bruce Pearl's tenure, and we sat right behind the South Carolina bench. And he is one of these coaches that, if you ever heard a coach that has the technique where they tell the player, it's like, if you messed up, he tells you exactly what you did, but in this very condescending way. He's like, so you're going to go down there, you're going to catch the pass, you're going to take one inside step, it's going to hit your foot and go out of bounds. And then nothing. And then the player just goes, yes.
I feel like they never talked back to him. Like they just always got taken out of the game. He would scream at them and then they would go sit down. Yeah.
Well, if you go back and watch, that's what he's saying. He's basically just telling them exactly what happened. And they're going, yes.
Yeah.
And then they go sit down.
Like they never talked back. I don't think I ever saw somebody talk back to him.
No.
Yeah. Oh man. But they were awesome. They get, well, South Carolina, I guess they got results once in South Carolina, but
they were good.
They went to the Final Four, I think in like 2017.
Yeah.
2017, 2018, somewhere around there. I was listening to you guys' podcast the other day talking about basketball, and Travis Relaford is going to be on the rec league team.
Oh yeah.
I think that actually is going to get foiled after all. I think some of the guys, Jake being one of them, was like, I'd rather play with our friends. And I'm like, I'd really like to play with, one of my favorite players in KU basketball, but that's fine. So yeah, he's not going to play with us after all. So we're going to play in like the middle league, and but I know how cool that. I mean,
I know.
Just anytime you get a chance to play with somebody that's even like somewhat, like I remember we'll play guys that are like, like they went to like D3 schools in basketball, and it's like they're amazing,
Yeah.
And so to imagine playing with a guy that not only went D1 but played at KU, like I mean, that would be so fun. But
yeah,
his brother Trevor Relaford was a point guard at Alabama when I was in school.
Right. Yeah.
And then he ended up marrying a girl that I worked with at the football team. So
oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So that's how I'm familiar with the Relaford family.
So
who did he marry? Candace Rosencrantz?
No, he did not marry Candace.
Oh, okay.
You might be playing, intramural basketball with, one of the Relafords sometime too, because he sounds like you have connections there.
No, nobody wants to see me on a basketball court.
not your thing, huh?
I'm more of a half court guy at this point in my career.
I mean, I think we all are. Yeah. You say perfect the three, rest on D kind of thing. That's what I've always heard.
I love, Matt, you would love watching Brad play basketball, because looking at him, you would think like, all right, this guy's going to use his like stature, his size to his advantage, get down there, work hard. Dennis Rodman, like throw some bows. This man stands outside and just shoots threes from the
corner. Me that ball. Yeah.
Just making it rain.
Oh, and he's got a good shot. Like some games, it's funny. I don't know if you would consider yourself streaky or not, but it's like, if it's not going in, it's not going to go in. And then maybe you'll get one later in the game. But sometimes you'll get like, he'll get hot and it'll be like, okay, keep feeding it to the big man, because like he's on tonight.
Yeah. I feel like I used to be so much better at basketball. Yeah, I am so streaky now. I don't even know if I'm streaky. I think I'm just not very good anymore.
Can you call it? Just keep calling it streaky though.
It's like I'm streaky. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a streaky player.
80% of the time, but when I make it, I make it.
Yeah. As long as, if you're saying you're streaky, it means that there's at least some bright spots. You can't just like write it off completely.
I think I like that you call me streaky. I don't know if I like calling myself streaky is just admitting that like I can be. That's like somebody's being like, like, oh,
Yeah.
if I was in shape, I would be really good at this sport. It's like, well, yeah, okay, but you're
Yeah.
not. So therefore, like,
Oof.
look yourself in the mirror here.
If you'd have seen me at 28 versus 31, like
Yeah, exactly.
night and day.
Well, I tore my ACL in college, and ever since then, I've been.
Did you really?
I played. I was when I was playing basketball at the rec just for fun,
Oh,
and so ever since then, I've just been scared of like doing anything really playing basketball, because I'm like, I'd rather shoot threes in a game and not get too physical than like
yeah.
try to make too many cuts and then bust up something again. And
You're an
do that,
offensive
so.
specialist, is what you are.
Pretty
It
much,
sounds like.
yeah. I'll push around people on defense, kind of like a football player would,
It's funny. Like Brad's got a little bit, not aggressive might be too strong. Aggressive is too aggressive of a word, but he's got a little nature of like, he doesn't mind getting something stirred up. Like I probably get a little chippy, get things going.
That's when I play my best, I think, is when I get a little bit of chippy and like get a little bit of argument go. Like some guy last session or whatever, when we played last season, he like made fun of my shoes. It was like this cool, like, hip, like younger guy. And he's like, nice shoes, man. Like kind of joking. They're like the old school, like Blake Griffin, Nike Hirachis from like 2005, probably.
Sure.
Like my cousin gave them, and they work just fine. But after every time I would take the ball and I would shoot, I'd make a three. I'd be like, I can make these in these shoes. Like, come on, man. Like, or he'd miss, and I'd be like, I guess those shoes aren't helping you too much, just messing with them. So I do like kind of stirring some stuff up.
So Brad, a few weeks ago, we ranked our top sports movie songs.
Yeah, I feel like we need it. There's some beef that we got to squash.
It's not saying these are the best songs ever created. it's the top 5 that are important to us. And okay. You had some beef with that.
I had some strong words.
Yeah,
which I can appreciate.
I think, I embrace debate. I was, I think, I forget who did you say it first, Harrison? Like your 1-1 was the Rookie of the Year song, and I was like, I had to look up what song that was. I was like, I don't even know what part of the movie this is. And then after you talked about it more, I was like, okay, I remember this song. But man, I was like, I forget.
You're like, these guys.
What? Let me. I'm gonna pull it up real fast.
Yeah, pull up the list.
I'll back up my feelings here. Let's see if I can find it. Because I think, Matt, you put a song from Remember the Titans that's not even on the movie. Is that true? Like, I want to find it.
The moment. It's the moment in the cafeteria with Louis Lastic, and he sings.
Yeah, which is he sings the song.
That's
I understand. Yeah. So it's like, and I think that was one of the biggest beefs I had, because I was like, that movie, you could say any song on that soundtrack, and you said the song that they had 4 lines from, that Louis Lastic singing.
Yeah, it's like shooting fish in a bucket. You could have named any song and it'd all be like a very good song.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
And then I think I'm trying to remember. I'm not able to find it real quick right now. Maybe is it under the podcast Instagram? Maybe.
Yeah, it's under the podcast.
Oh, here we go. Let's see. Endless Love. That's another one. I don't know Happy Gilmore super well. That was pretty funny though, how you guys put that on your background, Matt.
Oh, I know.
And then,
that's a great moment.
Oh, and then I did like, okay, I'm kind of backtracking a little bit, because I don't think that they're bad songs. I just think like there's better songs. Like the Let's Work Together on D2 was fun.
Yeah.
I feel like Whoop There It Is on D2 it's like electric.
Yes.
Fun.
And you put in the moment too. I guess that's what I'm kind of getting at, is like, we kind of put it there as not knowing, like, because then we both said, like, bar none, Remember the Titans has the greatest soundtrack of any of those movies. And we know that, like, but I want to hear from you, like, your favorite, and maybe that's how you made your list, but what are your favorite moments in sports movies that are linked to music?
I think you guys kind of mentioned this when you were talking about this, but I love sports. I love montages in movies, like that halfway point in the movie, especially in 90s movies, where it's just like everything's going right. There's a song. There's no audio except
how
for the
life
song.
Should be. Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful. Like it's my favorite part of almost any movie is this montage. And so almost all like Run Around Sue is that, like in Little Big League, is such a good montage. Like, because they're going crazy. They got what's his name? Ricky Scales, the little short, fast guy.
Yeah.
He puts the wig on. They're
Yeah.
like running around the dugout and they're like pushing each other back
It
and
looks
forth.
so
in the
much
dugout.
fun.
Oh yeah. And so I think I wrote down center field for the same idea of like, that was a great montage as well in Little Big League. Cause it's like, you know, Billy's finally just like getting to hang out with little kids, you know, and it's like, that's not Billy Haywood, you know, like looking at the baseball card, playing stickball.
Which fun fact?
Whoop, there it is. Same idea.
Same one.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the kid that looks at the card and goes, nah, that is the main character from First Kid. If you go back and watch, did you realize that? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
He's just younger.
Like, he's like younger and like rattier looking.
Yeah.
He's
from the streets. Movie too. You know, First Kid, he's the president's kid. In this movie, he's dirty. He's from the streets. He's seen some stuff
or whatever it is.
He doesn't even know what a baseball bat is. He only knows a broomstick. Like,
exactly. And then whoop, there it is. I just love the knuckle puck. Like, I just thought that was cool to bring like hip hop into hockey. You know, that was fun.
The knuckle puck.
And then Ain't No Mountain High Enough. I feel like that's just the most iconic song from the most iconic movie, in my opinion. So that's why I put that for Remember the Titans. I personally, if I knew, Matt, if I understood that it was like your own favorite songs,
it's on
my favorite song is from Remember the Titans is Around the Bend by PCR, because that's also a great montage.
Guitar, dude.
Yeah, it's like
when it hits and it gets
and
going.
they're running down the side. You know, I got Rev going down the sideline, go for a touchdown, or whatever. You know, like it's pretty electric too. So
I mean, there were legitimately 12 songs from Remember the Titans. I feel like I could have picked.
Yeah.
Right. And you know what? Like, well, so many of them are in montages. Like
I know.
Like the one where they're like going on a winning streak, Long Cool Woman in a black dress, you know, like that one, like they're, you know, like they're just like, it says like Titans eat, and then they like mark out Titans.
Yes,
you remember that? Like,
where they eat too many pancakes
things.
or whatever.
Yeah, man. So many great montages in that one. So
it's so good.
But
well, thanks for clearing that up. We knew,
absolutely.
You know, you just wanted to contribute. You wanted to see justice be served, but you know,
absolutely. That was my beef. And then I remember, like, I don't know, 5 episodes in, you guys ranked the Mighty Ducks people, and I thought that Julie the Cat Gaffney got snubbed, dude. I thought she was so much better than the rankings. But then again, it sounded like you, Matt, like you have really researched, Mighty Ducks, and I did not. So I don't know. Maybe she wasn't that good. But I remember back in the day, she seemed like she was unstoppable.
I thought about it a lot. I mean, I guess it's not that she's not good, but it's the fact that
you didn't get to see it.
Are her and Goldberg really the two best junior goalies that the Team USA could have gotten? That's probably more of my beef with that.
Yeah.
So, I've heard a lot of people say that with Charlie Conway too. Like how'd that guy?
Don't get me started on Charlie.
But he's such a whiner. Man. I mean,
he's such a whiner.
He is an OG, but I talk about this all the time. He is the biggest whiner in the entire series. He's the one that, like, when they switched to Hendricks. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, when they switch to Hendricks and they become Team USA, and he's so upset. He's like, "We're the Ducks, coach." And it's like, Charlie, hang on. Bring it in for 1 second. Man. Yeah. Listen to this. You're going to be representing your country in the Junior Goodwill Games. Get over yourself. We are not the Ducks right now. Okay. It'll be fine. Yeah. What were you going to say?
Or in D3 when Charlie's like trying to
tell he quits.
The new coach, like, no, that's not how we do it. That's not how we practice.
Yeah, this is not Ducks hockey. I'm going to go I'm going to go to the Mall of America and ride the roller coaster till I throw up. Screw you. Yeah. Exactly.
If you could have any Mighty Ducks jersey, which one would you get?
I think, I mean, the one that they debut in D2 at the end, like, that's just like the original Ducks jersey.
Oh yeah. I agree with that. But I'm also saying, like, what player?
Oh. Oof.
I know that's tough.
Well, while we're thinking about it, Brad, which of your 3 children are your favorite?
My oldest, for sure, because she's the only one that can understand what's going on. No, man, they're all awesome, man. It's so much fun.
I'd probably get like I don't know. It's like, do I want to go like my favorite, or do I want to go like ironic? Like Averman would be pretty ironic. I feel
Averman would be very ironic.
Exactly. Like it's like, do you want to go with one that no one else has, or like part of me wants Charlie Conway. Like he's just the OG.
That's the issue. His number, I like the high 90s number. He's 96 and he's got the captain's patch on it. It looks sick.
Yeah.
But
Right.
then I'd have to be like, yeah, I love Charlie Conway. This jersey's my favorite. But I can't say that.
I think the correct answer, Harrison, is that we get Fulton Reed and Dean
Custom.
Portman jerseys, and we
Yes.
wear them
Yes, the
together.
Bash Brothers.
You want
Yeah.
some tunes to go to bed by?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I ain't
love
seen
that
nothing
part.
yet.
They're just like
They're
banging their heads.
They cut back to them and they're just like on
Yeah.
top of the beds.
Yeah.
That's the best.
That is good.
Man, that's so good. Well, Brad, I want to ask more about kind of just the whole trajectory with where you're at now, like with starting your own business. We kind of talked about it a little bit with Ghost Runners. Now you're part of Jean Shorts. I know we haven't talked about it in a while, but you were dabbling in writing your own stand-up comedy. You went to a couple open mics. Like, I mean, you're full on kind of pursuing it. Fun fact, actually, Matt, about Brad, he, for the longest time, I don't know if you're still doing it, but he would write jokes like kind of one-off jokes for this company that would pay him to do it. And so we'd like go sit at a coffee shop and I'd be working on something. He'd be working on something. I'd be like, what are you working on? And he's just got a steno pad or like on his laptop, just jokes, like basically like almost like popsicle stick jokes.
Was it like zingers for like a boss to say when he walked into a conference room? Or
I wish they were like more thought out jokes. It was a kid's like coloring book company or something. So I think it literally was kind of like something you would see on a popsicle stick where it's like, you know, I can't think of what, but it's like all
they were amazing though.
Things. Yeah.
But they were so, I feel like, I wonder too, if when you're talking about honing your craft, if that even in itself, like even if some of them are corny or whatever, it really made you almost Jerry Seinfeld break it down to a science and be like, okay, I'm gonna put these two things together. Okay, this is great. This makes sense. This would be.
Yeah, maybe so.
I don't know. I thought that was cool.
It definitely did become a science of like, okay, I'm going to go through this category of my life, or I'm going to think of every animal I can think of and then think of puns off of that animal, or I'm going to think of every candy bar I can think of and make a pun, you know, like all these different silly things. Like, but yeah, it was ridiculous how much they paid. It was like $5 per joke, and they were not very hard jokes to make. Like we could think of 5 jokes right now, probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, they would ask for 50 jokes at a time, and they kept asking for more and more and more. So yeah, it was like a couple of years where I did those, you know, kind of, and I would basically just have them in the hopper of like, and I would just try to throw in jokes whenever I could. And then whenever they'd be like, okay, we want more, I'd just copy and paste from that note and send them over. So
that's amazing.
But yeah, that's I haven't heard from them lately. So maybe I, you know, kind of wore out my that one dry. They're kind of like, okay, I think we found some better people. yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
But yeah, what do you want to know exactly about my journey or my?
Yeah, so Matt, I know a little bit, but Matt and you know, other than Ghost Runners people that might have found their way over here, a lot of listeners don't know like story about, you know, out of college you're working a corporate job after K-Life and kind of figured like, man, I think I'd rather pursue this thing. You'd been doing woodworking for a while. I guess I kind of want to know, one, I'd love to hear just how that decision went and how, you know, that kind of leading up to where you find yourself now within running your own small business. That's like super interesting to me. But.
Yeah. So I did not grow up at all in my dad. I told you he was very, very social. He is not very, very handy. Like he's not a woodworker. He's not like anything you think of it when you think of like, oh, this guy's a woodworker, he must be this kind of guy. I guarantee you I'm not that kind of guy. Yeah. Like I could not have told you, hey, that's a 2x4 and that's a 2x6. Like I could not have picked out anything like that back in the day. And so but when we got married, my wife, she wanted a coffee table for our living room. And I think I had like a week and a half before I started my corporate job. And I think I literally Googled, I was bored. I Googled manly hobbies. And one of them that they suggested was woodworking. And I watched a few YouTube videos and I was like, I think I could probably learn how to do that.
Wow.
So I bought like 3 different tools. I, bought this wood, and down in my basement of this K-Life house, I built this coffee table, and thank the Lord, it turned out okay. Like looking back, I don't think it was good at all, but it turned out well enough where people complimented me, and it was functional, and it gave me a little bit of a sense of accomplishment. And so, then from there, I'm not addicted by any means. That was fun. I think I could make more things. And so, I remember this is a longer story, but I had led worship at a church, and I had borrowed somebody's nice guitar because my guitar wasn't so nice. And I was like, I wonder if I could make enough money doing woodworking on the side to buy a guitar. And so, because I was like, we're newlyweds. I don't have any money,
Mhm.
you know, but maybe if I just made this extra money, that wouldn't feel as bad, like spending that money on a new guitar. And so ironically, yeah, the whole long story short is that I got so busy with woodworking and so busy with orders that I was able to quit my corporate
Wow.
job, you know,
Yeah.
after 2 years. And I mean, I was working a lot while I was doing that corporate job. So I was working like probably 8-9 hours a day at the corporate job, and then like 8-9 hours a day at woodworking. It's like I feel like I worked until midnight and then got up at 6 and went to my other job. So it was definitely a grind. But the cool thing is that, yeah, eventually I quit my corporate job, and this money that originally was supposed to go towards a guitar, I then had time freed up in order, you know, because of that. And the church that I had led worship at, like, you know, a year and a half earlier, they were like, hey, would you actually like to come and lead worship here part-time, and we'll provide you a guitar. And so it was like this cool thing of like, okay, I have my full-time woodworking business, but I also have this part-time church job. And that's how I got my guitar, quote unquote. You know, I didn't really get it. It was theirs, but you know what I mean? Like, so
Sure.
that was a really cool thing. And the decision was, I remember it being kind of tough. I'm definitely like, I grew up viewing money as a seeming like a form of security, I guess.
Sure.
And so like my parents, we were never like poor by any means, but I don't think we were like abundant either in very many ways. I think my parents did a really good job of you know, giving their money to missions and giving their money to church. So I don't think we like had a ton of money like left over. And so to me, I was always like, I just want to be really sure with everything I do. I don't want to be crazy and like make these huge risks. And so I remember like when I was kind of thinking about the idea of going out on my own, I just didn't spend any money that I didn't have to. I saved so much money just so that way I could be like, if I don't make any money in my first year, you know, at least, you know, I'll have this, you know, I'm not going to, you know, go poor, you know, make my wife live on the street or anything like that. So, and luckily that didn't happen, but I remember like talking to my dad, and, you know, that was one of the things he recommended was like, well, how much money do you have in the bank? And I told him, he's like, okay, I feel a little bit better about you doing this. And then I remember I asked my father-in-law also, I talked to him about it, and he was like, you're always going to think and like regret, like, what if, you know, you're always going to have those questions if you don't go for this. And it kind of made sense. It wasn't like we had like tons of expenses. Yeah. We didn't have kids yet. And so it was like, let's go for this. Let's do this thing. And yeah, just kind of took a leap of faith in the extent. I mean, I'm not going to act like it was like this huge risk that had, you know, like if I would fail, then I'd be totally broke forever, you know, kind of thing. I still had like this backup plan of like, I have a degree, I can go get a job if I need to. But yeah, overall it was just, it's been amazing. Cause like, so my woodworking business now is a custom furniture business. It's called Ellis Custom Creations. And most of the clients that I have are residential. And most of the things I make are dining tables, which you don't buy, like, especially if you're buying one of mine, I hope that you don't buy another one, maybe ever, you know, like I want it to be like something that lasts forever.
Yeah.
And so because of that, like, that's kind of a tough business model, because then, you know, you're not getting repeat customers very often or anything like that. And so it's been really cool to watch how the Lord is like, you know, continue to bring business. There's some times where like, it's like, maybe I need to quit this thing and just go get a real job. And then like, it's like, boom, like business keeps coming to me. And so, so yeah, it's just been a really cool journey of faith, and like, just learning how to trust and learning how to, you know, just have open hands with the whole thing. And yeah, from that, all these other cool things have happened too. So yeah, it's been cool.
Yeah. What have you learned about yourself in that process of like, because I was having this conversation with Abby the other day. I would love to have at some point approach her and be like, have a conversation of like, hey, this thing that I've been doing, whatever that capacity is or space is, like, I would love to pursue that now, and her be trusting of me and me pursue that. What did you learn about yourself, I guess, in that process of taking a leap? And like maybe you already had confidence yourself. It's not like, I wouldn't say that you lack confidence, but all of us feel, you know, we have fear and we worry, and, you know, you want to make the right decisions.
Oh, totally. I still struggle sometimes with like, I'm very defensive when it comes to, you know, business and like marketing and stuff. Like, I don't ever want to like cold call people, because I'm like, I don't really have like, I have confidence in my ability, but I'm also like, don't just do whatever you want to do, you know, no problem. That's a good question. I mean, I learned a lot, I think, in so many ways. I think I learned that I really like to work, to the point where sometimes I think it's not always healthy.
Oh, wow.
Like, or
Yeah.
like, or I think I've kind of heard this principle before, but like you're going to like fill your, I don't know exactly how to say it, but like basically like, let's say you could either work 8 hours and get the same amount done as you work 15 hours or something like that. Like if you know you have 15 hours, you might not work quite as quickly. I don't know. So I think sometimes I found myself really, working long, but not necessarily like being super disciplined. And then now that I have kids and I have more strict schedules with certain things, I found myself like, okay, when I have like really like harsh deadlines and structure and schedules and routines, that's when I perform best.
Yeah.
Because for a while it was like, this is wonderful. This is my freedom business where I just have plenty of, plenty of, time to spend with my wife and, lead Bible studies and lead worship and do all these cool things. But it was like, okay, now that I have even more stuff going on, it's like, I really need to hunker down at times. And that's really beneficial to me. That's kind of, I operate better that way than if it's just like loosey goosey. Like, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. Maybe I'll, find something to do. So, and then I think as a marriage, we learn to, compartmentalize a little bit better. Because for the longest time, I mean, it was just Catherine and I, and then we had obviously our first, and it was so easy to just like, I mean, I guess more people are realizing this more now that they're working from home, but it's so easy to like get distracted by your spouse or your kids. And it's like, those are distractions. But for the longest time, I had a hard time, like it would be like one of those things where I would put my eyes down when I would like go inside to go to the bathroom. Cause I was like, I want to talk to you. I can't, I have to, cause I'm going to get so distracted by you guys in a good way. But I think we've kind of realized like our role now of like, hey, just trust that I'm going to be done at a certain time now every day. And, that's okay. So
yeah, Matt, you feel that now at home. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's what you just said is very relatable because for the last 13 years, counting like the 4 years I was working at Alabama as an undergrad, I was working with a football team and the hours were crazy and, did not have a ton of control over my time and was just kind of there from the time I woke up till, it was time to go home. And a lot of times it was 12, 13, 14-hour days. And not like you're working hard during all of that. There's a lot of downtime and you're just kind of there. But in January, when I switched over to doing this job, I started working from home, which is amazing because I get to spend a lot more time with my wife, a lot more time with my kids, kind of getting up, taking our time, cooking breakfast, having a cup of coffee, and then being able to, hey, when it's dinner time, I can just go upstairs and do that. And that's been really nice and beneficial just for my relationship with my wife, for my relationship with my kids, and getting to see them grow up and kind of have just some freedom to do. Like Friday, we went to the aquarium, and that's not something I would have been able to do in previous jobs. But I get what you're saying, Brad, in terms of like when I go upstairs to use the bathroom, sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm just using the bathroom. I got to go back. Like please don't, please,
yeah.
Like Audrey,
it's so hard because you don't want to be like
wrap around my
offensive
leg,
or like cold to them.
Right.
But it's like I want to, of course separation. I want to do these things.
Right. Yeah, you just need some level of separation between the work and stuff. And I'm fascinated with what you do. Like you said, your dad wasn't handy. That shocked me because I've seen your Instagram account. Like I've seen some of the stuff you make. I've seen the tables and it's incredible. And I just assumed that that's like something that was taught. And it's kind of amazing to hear that you just kind of taught yourself that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's probably going back to that question you asked, Harrison, that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned is just like, I think for the longest time, I was like, I'm not XYZ kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like I don't have that engineer mind. I don't have that
you almost put yourself in
handyman
a box.
mind.
Yeah.
And I just thought that it was like, you're either one person or you're another. Like you can't do these things. And so like, I think since then I've learned, like just the other day, I learned how to do a bowline knot, which is not a hard knot to do, but it's like one of those things where it's like, for the longest, back in the day, I would just be like, I'm not a Boy Scout. I don't know how to do knots. I'm not gonna learn how to do that, but now it's like, hey, I'm gonna learn how to do this because I know you can if you just put a little bit of effort into it. And so, I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is just like, you can learn to be all these things. Like even like well, to an extent, I
Right,
think
to an
singing,
extent. No, I
singing, I
agree.
think is one of those things that like so many people are like, I'm not a singer. And if you're tone deaf, yeah, you're not a singer. But like if you don't,
Right.
if you're not tone deaf, you can learn how to sing better. Like you just have to exercise that skill, that instrument kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's the same idea. So
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I guess to your point about kind of like not cutting yourself off from learning new things too. Do you have that same approach when it comes to like the stuff that you do now when it's writing bits or it's practicing for a stand-up comedy or
yeah,
I think about this too because obviously us trying to one of my biggest goals for our podcast is to get 52 episodes in straight.
yeah,
That would be a
yeah,
huge accomplishment for us. It would just feel so good to be able to say we consistently did this. But
right.
I mean, there's got to be weeks, or there was at the beginning, I'm sure, where you would walk into it being like, I don't really know like how this is going to go. We're kind of just here.
Yeah.
But have you more so like kind of honed that, it's like a muscle of just like, one, you have to have the passion and the joy in doing it, but also like you're putting in the time. I think Jerry Seinfeld, as far as comedians go, talks a lot about that, like the
Right.
consistency and putting that in. Go ahead.
Yeah. And to be honest, I haven't put as much time as I maybe wish I could into stand-up stuff, like because it's I will say stand-up is way harder than it seems. So like anytime like people do stand-up, even if it's not funny, I'm like kind of respectful of it because like so often I'm like, that wasn't very funny to me. But man, like that person, like it's way harder to think about the material than anything, like to think of that. But I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I've definitely honed in on certain aspects of the comedy writing and everything. But Jake and Trey, so like I do this YouTube channel with Jake Triplet, my guy that I do podcasting with, and then Trey Kennedy, big social media guy. And both of them are they live on social media. They know all these different social media influencers and all these people that I've never heard of that have 45 million followers on Instagram. That I'm like, I to me, I don't necessarily deep dive into all those things. Maybe I would if it was my full-time thing like it is for them, but I don't find that same like desire to go super deep into that, because I think that can like take away from the originality of myself, if that makes sense. Like if I'm trying too hard to like look and see how does Jim Gaffigan do it or how does Jerry Seinfeld do it, then I'm like, well, maybe I'll turn it into one of them. Whereas if I'm just like, hey, I just know what's in my life, I know what's going on, and I'm just gonna let's try to write about that. Some of them might hit with people, and other ones will be like, man, I don't understand any of that. But yeah, overall, I think that's kind of the approach that I take with that kind of thing, is just trying to be myself. So yeah.
You mentioned this earlier that like you don't get a lot of repeat business because when you make a table for somebody, you hope it's the last table you have to make for them, right?
Right.
That they use for a long
Right.
time. And I was watching, there's a kind of a random movie. It's called Margin Call. It came out
Okay.
probably 10, 12 years ago. And it's one of those deals where it came out around the same time as The Big Short, and it's about the same thing, but just
Okay.
for whatever reason, people didn't watch it.
It was like
But
Olympus Has Fallen, or what was the other one?
White House Down.
White House Down.
Yeah, they come out at the same time.
Yeah.
So Margin Call is about the 08 housing market crash, but it's really from the perspective of the bankers and the people that, for lack of a better term, like let this happen. And so it's a different perspective, but there's a scene at the end. I was watching it the other day, where one of the bankers had been fired, and he had been at this company. He was an executive, all this stuff, for 20 something years, and he's sitting there with another person that had got let go, and he's like basically kind of having this thought of like, am I making a difference? Am I helping people? Am I doing stuff? And he says, he says to the other guy, did you know I was an engineer before? And he said, no, I didn't know that. He said, yeah. He's like, I designed this bridge that went from the small town in Ohio, small town in West Virginia. And he goes on this whole thing. It's actually really eloquent, but like he talks about, how much like it saved everybody 35 miles of driving. And there was 12,000 people that used that bridge every day. Oh, wow. And he saved them, X amount of time that they got back with their families and their loved ones. And he talked about how much of a difference he felt like he made by designing that bridge. And that's gotta be pretty cool for you. Like you're a little bit different, but like you're making, dining room tables and chairs that that are going to be in people's houses, and they're going to move. They're going to move from Kansas City to Dallas, from Dallas to San Francisco. Like they're going to move around with people. Like they're going to get passed down to, people's kids and grandkids. And people are going to have memories at the things you create. And I just think that's really cool.
Absolutely. That's kind of the thing that really motivated me to get into it more was basically what you said, not only about like passing it on to more generations, but just the idea of like I grew up in a great family, and one of the things that really made us close was sitting around the dinner table and growing closer, talking about our days, or playing games, or having our friends over and joking, telling stories around the table or whatever it might be. And so like, I'll make beds, or I'll make coffee tables, or I'll make bedside tables or something like that. But the thing that I really, really get excited about is dining tables, for that same idea of like, I don't just want it to be a really beautiful table. Of course, that's great. But the idea is like the benefit that this table can bring to your family, whether it's an IKEA, $100 table, or a Ellis Custom Creations table, like is you can grow so much deeper around it. And so that's what really gets me excited, because I've always had a knack and a desire for business and owning a business, but I never, or even like sales. I like the idea of sales, but I never wanted to sell something that was just like mediocre, ho hum. I'm not really excited about this. I wanted to see something. I'm like, I'm excited. I'm not ashamed to talk about this. It doesn't have to be from me, but like have some kind of, daily, nightly routine where you're gathering as a family, where you're growing deeper with friends. And so that's what I really get excited about is, that kind of aspect of it.
I mean, that's what you're selling more than just the physical, nice, well-constructed table. It's the, like you said, the conversations happening around the table. I remember when we were growing up, do y'all remember, I think it was Nickelodeon or Nick at Night had this thing that they pushed. It was called the family table. I think it was literally the family table. We'd have these little commercials that would pop up in between, like, I don't know, SpongeBob and Jimmy Neutron or something. And it would be that very thing where they were trying to get families back into, or like push that idea of like the family table is where so many things happen. So I think just the opportunity that you have in like selling and creating those spaces for people, that's so cool.
Right. It's so important. And I think these days, I don't know how it is around the, United States, but I feel like where we live in Kansas City, it's a wealthy area, and so many kids are involved in so many things and just running around.
So busy.
And we're so busy that it's like, hey, like you're not getting this time with your family. And I think that's so important to sit down and really, have intentional time. And so that's what, I'm hoping to, come back to more of those routines, those things. So I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So how many years have you been doing the woodworking thing, Brad?
6, I think 6.5, maybe something like that. I'm really bad with dates. I think that's like one of the things I'm like worst at in life. Yeah.
So I'm sure over, let's just say 6 years, your wood shop and your kind of collection of tools and different things you can use has grown. Do you have a favorite tool in your wood shop? Whether it's your like a miter saw or a bandsaw or a joiner or anything like that. Like, is there anything that's like your favorite thing to work with, like that you're just feel like you're really in tune with? And I'm a pro at this.
Now, are you on Wikipedia looking up tools for woodworking?
No, I watched so I knew we were going to interview Brad, and I pulled up an old video of
Ron Swanson,
Nick Offerman going through his wood shop, because I was like, that's what I connected it with. I really enjoyed it, so I watched that earlier, and he's going through his tools.
He's a legit woodworker. Like he is like I've read a few of his woodworking books, and they're really cool. That's a fun question, and I was actually just thinking about this the other day of like, which part of the process do I really, really enjoy the most? Because I've actually started hiring out like a helper, kind of seasonal employee, if you will. And I've been trying to give him more things, but I've realized like so many of the process, I'm like, I want to do this part.
What do you not want to give up?
Yeah. I do. So I have a brand called Festool. I don't know if you've heard of them, but it's like the Cadillac, it's like the super nice version of woodworking tools. And so almost everything I have now is Festool. I don't know if I have like a specific thing that I love the most. Probably a miter. I have a miter saw from them, and it's amazing. But there's no like one part of the process that's like way better than the rest. I have something called a track saw that like, it's like a circular saw, but it goes on this track to cut straight thing. Which sounds so simple, but it is like so wonderfully, functional. And I mean, yeah, there's so many different cool things, but I don't have like one part of the process that I'm just like, I guess, I don't know. Yeah. I have so many different things with it. I like sanding to an extent, I get bored of
Sure.
it eventually, but I really like the way it feels and looks when it's sanded. And,
Yeah.
but I also like, starting from this super rough looking piece of wood and, making it look better. So I like that question. I also don't know if it's too
There's so
hard to
much.
pick one.
You've been,
I mean,
I
you
will
asked me
say,
to pick my favorite child again,
right.
Yeah.
I will say you've been killing the reels lately. I've been eating
Thank
up
you.
your Instagram
Yeah.
reels.
I've been
And-
trying to get a little bit better with that. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, that gets so much of the process. And I know, like, I mean, those take a lot of time. If you're getting like multiple angles throughout the whole
Right.
thing, it's probably like a couple hours worth while you're out
Yeah.
there.
Every
getting
once in a
that
while,
done.
I'll go through part of the process and I'll forget to record it. And then like the
Right.
reel is like, oh, like I messed it up,
Try
whatever.
again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not used to it yet, but I'm trying. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. There's something very
Yeah.
satisfying about the chiseling of the glue. That's the best.
Yeah,
It's just like
yeah.
the way it flies up.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so nice.
Right. That's a great part of the process. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Bro, Brad, do you have a favorite wood that you like to work with?
Yeah, walnut is my favorite. But lately I've been getting into, lighter woods because I kind of am more like, I started out more of like a farmhouse style of
Mhm.
builder, and now I've kind of expanded to doing more things than that. And I've started really appreciating modern style, woodworking, which is often more light. So white oak and maple are also two that I really like a lot. But walnuts, I think, just always going to be the crown jewel for me. It's local, like Missouri is like the largest like walnut distributor in the world, and so it's like pretty easy to find here, pretty relatively inexpensive here. And yeah, I love working with it. It's the one that's like basically really dark brown, like anytime you stain anything, it's almost always trying to emulate walnut. So I mean, it's just like it's the OG with that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's second to none. I actually worked with a bunch of walnut today, and it was a glorious time. So
Just living with Isaac, who's also a woodworker. I've heard him talk about walnut because it's nice. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like when he has walnut around, and I've gotten okay at recognizing what woods are what they are, and I'm
Right.
like, oh, you're working on something special,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Got some
Yeah,
walnut
and
in here.
like
Yeah.
you can tell the difference between like something that's stained and something that's just naturally beautiful.
Naturally that
and that's
color.
walnut's
Yeah.
naturally beautiful. So
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's the best for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, you got any more wood questions for Brad? Because I wanted to ask more about his newfound career with the YouTube world. I'm very intrigued. You got any more wood
Yeah.
things?
I have one more wood question.
Okay.
Come on, bring it. I'm here all night, baby.
When you talk about capacity, like me and Matt have tried to, like, some episodes we'll like, look at the clock and be like, oh man, we've been going for an hour and a half. But like, I've lived the experience of a Ghost Runners podcast being recorded, and it's like, have they been going since yesterday? Is it the same episode? Yeah.
It's
Are
like
they
Joe
still doing that same one?
It's like Joe Rogan. You don't realize it's 4 hours long.
Yeah.
But no,
I love it.
Brad, just humor me for a second, because I have random things that pop into my head all the time. Harrison and I
Great.
talked about this. Was it last week? You're talking about Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
So like, I like understanding how things work, how things are made, why they happen.
That's what it was.
And so like I get how to make a dining room table. I don't know if I could, but I understand how it's done.
Okay.
When you're making chairs to go with, how do you make sure the chairs, like if you're making 6 chairs that go around a table, how are you making sure that all of them are the same?
Yeah. So I actually don't make the chairs. That's the bummer.
It's the secret. This is
Yeah,
how the
man.
sausage is made.
I have made chairs before, but if I tried to truly make chairs like the chairs that you can buy at a factory, I would have to charge as much for a chair as I would for a table, because
Gotcha.
it is really, really difficult. Like I know a guy who's actually my pastor in college, who he's a big woodworker, and he makes chairs, and he makes like one chair every 4 months. Like it takes him forever to make these things.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to ask, because it seems like it would be a very time consuming process
Exactly.
to make
all those
room
pieces.
chairs.
Yeah. So back in the day, I used to just not make chairs, and now I just say, hey, I can like order unfinished chairs and finish them in either the paint or the stain color that you want. And so, yeah, you should watch a YouTube video on that sometime. I mean, it is really difficult though. They obviously are made with machines and stuff in a factory. Like like they have templates, they have ways that you can make it so you can copy every single thing the exact same, and then they just part it out. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm not in the chair making. Maybe someday I'll have the high enough, credentials where it's like, hey, Brad works on one project for 6 months out of the year, for this, for Steph Curry or something like that.
It's like Jay-Z. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna come out after 8 years. I'm gonna make an album. I've been retired,
exactly.
But yeah.
No, I think that'd be awesome. And that's kind of the goal, is like not truly that extreme, but like I think I used to try to just pump out volume of stuff. And now it's like, I'd rather, rather than making 3 tables for $1,000, I'd rather make 1 table for $3,000, or, whatever, something like that. And so just continuing to kind of go deeper into the nicer things and taking more time, because then you can really enjoy the process more than just worrying about, everything. But yeah, unfortunately the chairs are a different beast. You should look up though, like, have you heard of like bending wood? Like you can basically
that's just wild.
Steam bending wood and stuff like that. I mean, it's nuts. So I think you can get pretty close to doing the same one every time without a template. But yeah, that's kind of the short answer, is that I don't make them myself. I'm sorry. You probably are like so much less impressed with me now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. All your stuff is crap.
Yeah.
It's all a sham.
What a sham.
What a sham.
What a loser.
No, I feel like I've been at your house before when you had the chairs, because usually they come in pieces and then we put them together.
Oh, but yeah, you helped me put them together one time.
I've helped you put some chairs together before.
Yeah,
there was a hot minute when I was jobless that Brad was nice enough to let me come hang out and paid me with you paid me in Chipotle. I helped you for a day and you let me you gave me a burrito bowl,
which is just really the best currency you can imagine.
If that could carry me through life, I would just take that every time.
Absolutely.
If I didn't need any extra money. But watching that process and then thinking about if he had to also make 6 chairs, like, nah, he'd be there forever.
It would, like I said, I would just have to charge so much, because you realize when you work for yourself how much more valuable your time is.
Yeah.
And so I would just have to charge so much for my time, and couldn't do that. So
that's fair. So I wanted to ask about, obviously, like, just being around you guys' podcast for a while. Our podcast, y'all's podcast, is very different. Like, well, I guess that's what I'll start. I do want to talk about jean shorts, but I really wanted to ask about just like y'all's podcast process. It feels like, in a way, you have a formula without having a formula. And you guys kind of approach, it's a lot like I think the tagline maybe on your Instagram is a lot like Seinfeld, less Jewish. But it's
somebody
really
described it that way one time.
Like it's about nothing, but it's about so much at the same time. So you've probably seen it change throughout the years, but how did y'all kind of find the model, I guess, quote unquote, of like what it is now, and like what's your approach to, like, because like I caught y'all in the living room the other day and you're like, are y'all prepared? And you're like,
totally.
But how do you feel about it now in year 3 versus how you felt about it before? I
think first of all, it's so fun. I think there's definitely weeks where, like, as I'm driving over to Jake's house, I'm like, oh man, I would like to go to sleep right now. Or like, Matt, you can understand, like there's nights where I'm bathing my kids and they're just screaming at me and I got water all over my shirt. And then, Jake's like, hey, I just woke up from a nap, like, it's just like completely different, like different vibes of like, I go from this crazy like environment over to Jake's house, and Jake's this bachelor, just like, I just ate Chipotle for the 4th time this week, whatever.
But you're going to come over and pod, right?
It's funny you mentioned that, because there are times like where I'm in the space you were just talking about, where you're like, you've got both kids in the bath, like the 3-year-old's running around, like you can't find her, she doesn't want to put her jammies on. And then and then like Harrison, like he won't respond to text for hours at a time. They'd be like, oh, sorry, I was busy. I'm like, you were busy? You were busy?
I have no excuse.
Right.
I don't even know what that word means.
Which, that's another thing, because I feel like everyone thinks that they're the busiest person ever, but there's always somebody out there. But it's like so many times there was like a span of like 3 or 4 weeks in a row where, like, for whatever reason, my kids were always crazy right before I would go record the podcast. Luckily Jake lived far enough away that I could like kind of clear my head in between, because so often it's like, man, this is so the vibes are so different.
Every intro would be the same. It'd be like, let me tell you what just happened at home.
Exactly. And I never want to like point or paint fatherhood in a negative light necessarily, because
Sure.
obviously overall it's amazing. But yeah, there's times where it's like, dude, you don't like I can't wait for Jake to be a dad. Probably kind of how Matt can't wait for Harrison to be a dad, because it's like someday you're gonna be like, dude, you did this with 2 kids. Like
Yeah.
you did this when you had 3 kids. Like A, your wife is a saint, B, like how are you not like falling asleep?
Yeah.
I'm excited for those days when I can get a little more I mean, Jake definitely appreciates me, but when he can like realize like how dichotomous my life is between like this serious intentional dad and then all of a sudden like trying to be like this goofy
Flip
ghost
the
runners guy.
switch.
But
Yeah.
yeah, overall the podcast, I think it's become so much more purposeful now. Like it still has the same bones, it still has the same just lighthearted, really nonsensical, just talking to your best friend kind of thing. But so many of the reactions that we've had from we call them our fans. It's kind of weird to even say that, but people that listen to our podcast, is like, they have such deeper appreciation for it. They have, they're like, your podcast and the humor and the laughs you provided helped me get through this really hard time in, our marriage, or, when we lost a baby due to a miscarriage, or when my friend died, or, my mom just died last week, or, all these different crazy things that we don't obviously directly say anything to address, but at the same time, God is using us through our silly podcasts to like, to make a difference in those things. And so I think before I was just kind of viewing it as like this, like when we first started, I was like, yeah, it's just me and Jake talking and we'll see if anybody listens. And now it's like, people are listening. And even though it's not like directly, like, I'm not directly affecting them by what I'm saying, I'm indirectly affecting them by the joy that I'm bringing, or like the example that we set. Like some people say like, it's just really cool. There was one, probably one of my favorite compliments I've ever gotten was like, I don't think they described themselves as an alcoholic, but they said like, I thought it was impossible to have fun without drinking. I thought it was impossible to have fun without getting drunk. And your podcast has showed me that you guys can be fun, just people that love life and that don't go for those things, and so that was a really cool compliment, just to be like, hey, you can appreciate the finer things, the not the finer things, but the more fun things in life. But at the same time, not fall into all these worldly things, worldly desires in the process. And so yeah, I think overall we still approach it pretty nonchalantly. I always have to prepare every week now. It's like a tradition at the end of the podcast. We call it End It With a Jingle. And so our Ghost Runners listeners, ghosties, we call them, ghosties, will submit different parody songs, that have Ghost Runners like themed lyrics. And I sing a song every week, and so, a couple of weeks ago, I think I did Should I Stay or Should I Go by the Ramones or something like that. I Accidentally in Love, I think I did this past Monday with Counting Crows. So and I love it, so much fun, but I do have to prepare for that. But for the most part, we kind of just wing it, and we're like, let's go. We make notes on our own and just say like, this is what happened to me this week. But then there's other times where we'll tell each other like, hey, I don't have much written down this week. That's almost more fun, because it's like a green light of like, okay, so anything we get on, let's really go the rabbit hole on that, whereas like I got a lot of stuff written down. It's like, okay, let's not deviate too much from the plan here. So but yeah, overall it's been so fun to work with Jake. When you work with a best friend, it's kind of a scary thing, because you never know if you're gonna eventually dislike it, or you're gonna eventually struggle through that. But we've never really had any issues or anything like that. He's very easygoing. I think I hopefully am pretty easygoing too. And our schedules are flexible enough. That's been great. But yeah, it's been so fun. He really compliments me well. I think we are similar in so many ways, but we're also so different, and so not only from our backgrounds, but also, our lifestyles now. But we also have so many things in common. So it's just been really fun.
Yeah. I would say definitely your lifestyles and the things that you just have to focus on day in and day out are very different.
Right.
But the fact that y'all can bring that together and it comes out to what it is so cool. And I think that's probably why people gravitate towards it so much, other than just both of y'all have great personalities. The fact that y'all complement each other so well. I will say,
because like,
go ahead.
Oh yeah, certain people can appreciate the fatherhood aspect and the marriage aspect, but other people are like, oh, I'm single, or
and they love I'm in college, that Jake doesn't have it. That's also it too, is like you presenting your side and him presenting his, and either one of y'all are looking at each other like, you know, like he doesn't have to deal with this, or I don't have to
Yeah,
deal with
what
this.
was it the other day? I was telling a story about this, like whatever, somebody started bleeding, and Jake asked if Hattie, who's 5 years old, he goes, "Does Hattie know the word blood?" And I'm like, "What? Like how? Like you don't?" He's like, "I don't
She's
know
5.
anything about like
Couldn't even talk yet.
anything." Yeah, exactly. It's like what do you think? This like you think that this girl just doesn't have any kind of vocabulary at 5
What kind of
years
father
old?
do you think I am?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's like, I don't know what you teach and what you don't teach.
Yeah.
If you wait on certain things, I'm
Yeah.
like, that's
If
fair.
Jake has a kid that doesn't know what blood is by the time she's 5, I don't know.
No, Jake's kid is gonna be so smart. It's gonna be like,
Gonna be
that's my
so
hemoglobin.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. Gonna be so smart. Go on with the chlorophyll. Yeah. Yeah. That's so good.
Well, you had an unfortunate interaction with kids a couple weeks ago, right? Because I was listening, I think it was last week's episode.
Who Brad did?
Yeah,
Remind me.
was it you that went up to the group of kids at the lemonade stand
Oh yeah.
and said, "Hey kids, are your parents home?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
no.
You
Do you
want
want
to
to
that, Harry?
do you want to be in a video?"
Yeah. So we were filming this video for Gene Shorts, our YouTube channel, and it was me, Jake, and our video, our cameraman Derek. And I mean, yeah, just 3 30-year-old men walking around this neighborhood. It's a suburban dads like theme video, and we see these kids that have a lemonade stand. It's like, this is perfect. This is wonderful. This is just exactly what we're trying to do with the suburban dads video anyway, Americana. And so we're like, we got to see if these kids want to be in our video, getting a lemonade stand. Like, what's more suburban than that? And me being the dad I am trying to like purely think like, hey, yeah, this will be great. This will like I want to make sure their parents are on board. And so, yeah, without like thinking about exactly how it came out, we come up to them with this like, and it's not like a little like cell phone camera or a little like tiny, what was that camera back in the day that was literally, I had like one button on it?
Yeah, the iFlip or whatever.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's a huge like TV reporter looking camera, and these 3 grown men walk up to him, and I'm just like, "Hey, are your parents home?" and I could tell this kid had like the biggest like struggle in his mind of like, do I lie to this man, the stranger walking up to me?
Yeah.
Or he just was like, no. and then I had to like explain myself. But yeah, it was very uncomfortable for a second. Like, we're filming this YouTube video. We were wondering if you want to be in it, but please ask your parents first, because we don't want to.
Did you buy some lemonade at least? Did you purchase some of the kids' lemonade?
That was one of the best parts about it. Was like, we were walking up to him, and I didn't have my wallet on me. Jake didn't have his on him, and then Derek only had a 20. And the lemonade was 50 cents each. And I go, Derek, give him a $20 bill, and let's make these kids like that'll be a memory they'll remember for the rest of their life.
Oh yeah.
And so I didn't get any lemonade or Kool-Aid. It was actually Kool-Aid. But I didn't get any Kool-Aid, but the other two, like, so they're like, it's $1. And I was like, here you go. He's like, I was like, keep the change. He's like, really? It was like the coolest thing ever. So
can you imagine that story in 10 years? He's like, you guys remember that time we almost got kidnapped, but then they gave us $20? It was awesome.
Yeah. And they said, don't tell your mom about this.
About any of it.
Yeah. Right. This is called hush money.
Look
it up.
Keep it quiet, kids.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
Anyway, that was, I'm glad that you heard that, Matt, because that was a pretty funny experience.
I'd imagine there's so many interesting experiences like that when y'all are trying to film those. That it just like in public settings. Like the one that gets me was one of the filling station videos, or the videos y'all did about the coffee shop at filling station, and you're like rapping on the door really hard. You're just like, hey, come on, like 2 minutes, like let me in. And I just think, and maybe nobody was in this shop at the time, I don't know, but I just think of watching y'all do that in public and people driving by and being like, what is going on?
No, people were in there all the time. And I think that like it helps having Derek's massive camera, because it's like they know that we're doing something. It's not just like this random person. Right. I don't mind that stuff. I kind of live for it, honestly. I think it's fun, because then like not only can you have a funny video in public, but then you can also like have bloopers where you're interacting with the fans or whatever. So
that's true.
I kind of like it. Trey really doesn't like it, I think, because he's actually famous enough where people recognize him.
Yeah.
And so it does become distracting. And I think Jake's kind of half and half on it. But I think it's kind of funny. But yeah, it can be kind of awkward. Like we're definitely like kind of trying to be like discreet sometimes about where we film or whatever. But overall, I always embrace it. Actually, I say that except for the Suburban Dads video. We were filming it in this neighborhood that none of us have a house in. We were just, it's like drove to a subdivision neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we were basically like standing on somebody's lawn, like on the curb of somebody's house doing this video. And the neighbor across the street was out doing yard work. And that guy was probably 70 years old and stared me down the entire time. And I was uncomfortable. Like he flustered me a little bit.
Yeah. He was like trying to intimidate you to get you get out of there.
He was either really curious or just
or
like,
it could have just been curious.
But anyway, I mean, he was like probably 30 seconds at a time he would stare at us. It wasn't like a quick like, oh, that guy's looking at us, like, you know, it was like he's trying to intimidate us or something here. So
Crazy Eyes, what you in for? Bit the mailman again. He's trying to cast a spell on me or something. I don't know. Maybe he's just waving now that I think about it. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Cool. Well, let me just say this. Just whatever Trey's paying you, man, it's not enough, dude. All right.
Hey, you send this straight to his office. This recording. All right.
Hey, he needs to know. He needs to know. Whatever it is, it ain't enough.
That's great.
But yeah, like how has that experience of kind of transitioning into, not that you never had a desire to be someone who did that kind of stuff and created content in the YouTube space, like some of you and Jake's earliest stuff together, like when Matt, when they had they called it F12, but there was an event, a live event in February that Ghost Runners put on here in Kansas City. And they rented out this kind of theater space and had all these people come, and it was a blast. But they showed some of these old videos that Jake and Brad made probably a handful of years ago. And a lot of it was kind of almost like a Billy on the Street model, or like a kind of Kyle Mooney of just like getting in these crowds and asking funny questions and just getting people's natural reactions. And so there's that. And then you'll kind of just go into the podcast. And now you find yourself in this kind of YouTube space of, being under Trey's label, I guess, or how has that whole thing been? And just like for what you want to see it become, or where you find yourself in that, how has that been for you?
Yeah, it's been cool. I think I give it a caveat. Like the one thing I struggle with YouTube is like, and I don't, luckily I try not to think about it this way. I kind of mentioned this earlier. Like I try to think about it as a consumer, and like, as I try not to like do a bunch of research into all the YouTubers and how they're finding
how to play the game. Yeah.
Which totally makes sense that we should do that. And Trey and Jake do enough of it. So I kind of stay out of that. Yeah. But sometimes I get exhausted with like, okay, what's the title of this video going to be? Okay. Like what theme, like we need it. Like this one did really well. So let's think of another one that's like similar to that theme. Whereas I'm just like, let's find something that's funny and just make a video about it. And hopefully like our fans are going to be devoted enough and deep enough where they're going to watch every video we do, no matter if it makes perfect sense with their theme or not. So that's like my biggest struggle. And I understand. And obviously like Trey makes a huge living doing what he does. And so it's like, he knows what he's doing. And I ultimately, I trust him, but that's my internal struggle of like, I don't want to, it's almost like working for the, like, I don't want to be like like going for the man, like the algorithm's like the man, like I want to be an indie rocker, I don't care what label I'm on, or,
it's all grunge, baby.
But yeah, it's been really fun to get into that space and just see the different side of Jake and see how he, works and operates. And same with Trey, working with Trey, like seeing somebody that's that successful with this and how he things he does like really emphasize and take seriously and make important, but other things he's like super lax on. Like it's like, we did this bridesmaid versus groomsman video, is what we called it. And it was just like, we talked about the difference in how bridesmaids take, they have to get there at 7:30 in the morning for a 6 o'clock wedding. And the groomsmen are like, hey, be there by 2:30 and make sure your tux isn't wrinkled or something, but I didn't know we were filming that video until I had already left my house that morning. And so I was like, dude, I don't have a suit. Do I need to go back for this? I actually have a suit jacket in my back, in my back seat, but I don't have a suit. I have black joggers. And Trey's like, that's actually perfect and hilarious. Like just wear your joggers with your suit jacket.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Whereas like I being like more of a perfectionist, being more of like it needs to be a certain way. Like I think to myself, like, I want to make sure it's exactly right. And he knows like, it's not a huge deal what kind of pants you're wearing, like
there's some give and take there.
It's funnier like to get the right shot, but who cares? And then we actually leaned into that. Like in the video, we're like, I forgot my pants, but these joggers are black, so they're gonna be just fine, so anyway,
which is a great joke. Yeah.
And that's like genius of him to think that way. Whereas I'm just like, oh, I'm the dingus employee that forgot to bring the right thing. And he's like, no, let's pivot this thing. So the overall process has been good. I I think sometimes I struggle with the writing side of things. Like,
Mhm.
because sometimes we sit there as we're brainstorming a video and we just sit there in silence for 2 minutes straight. And 2 minutes of silence when you're in a room of 3 people is like, it's
Crippling.
awkward.
Yeah, it's probably an hour long.
Especially
Yeah.
when you're having conversation and all of a sudden you just stop talking because everyone's trying to think about a joke or something. And so that's kind of grueling on me. It's more of a discipline than it is like a joy sometimes. But every time we film, just like the podcast, every time we record, it's like, oh, that was really fun, and great to do. And
well, if you ever need help in the writing department, I've got a newly found side hustle. I'm actually going to sell jokes for $5 a pop. So if you guys ever need help, I'm all here. I'll give you my Venmo account. So
perfect.
Yeah.
That's what we need, man. Yeah, that'd be perfect. Yeah, it is. It's fun to like brainstorm all the different premises because so many of them are just like, what happened to us this week? Like Trey went to a wedding.
Yeah.
And so it's like, let's do one about every type of person at a wedding, and so many of them are pretty similar, like where it's like every type of person blank or blanks versus blank or, blanks be like, or something like that. But it's like getting into the character or just trying to find things that are relatable are just so fun. So I've really enjoyed it. I would like to get more into the stand-up game, and that's what Trey and Jake are also doing. And so that's my ultimate hope with it is like that. I don't mind continuing to do YouTube, in perpetuity.
Sure.
Because it's not super time consuming. But the awesome thing would be like to perform in front of people. My biggest goal in 9th grade, I think I was voted most likely to be on Saturday Night Live back in the day. And like, that's always been like a dream of mine to like perform in front of people live. And so I would love to get into that space sometime, but it's a lot harder than it looks whenever you're also running a business and having a family and doing another, all these other things. So, and then also trying to be a good citizen outside of your jobs. So, and being a good friend, husband, whatever. So,
right. Yeah. Have you done any kind of improv stuff outside of like pursued it on your own at all?
Improv specifically? No, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, we did working at Kanakuk, you did so much improv and it was so much fun. Like, I came alive doing that kind of thing, but
there's something in the water there. It's because can be such a bubble at times. There's a freedom in like, it's hard to explain to people who maybe haven't done something like that, where you feel you unlock something there as far as a character or like just getting into whatever it is. You're like, some people are able to do, like, I feel like you probably can do that now in real life, but I remember feeling so much like, feel very much in tune with yourself in that way. And you're like, there's a freedom to just like be wacky and like really get into whatever it is you're doing, that it lacks the like the inhibitions of normal day-to-day life. Like you don't really carry those, and I'm saying like in an inappropriate way, but just like it's a very safe space. You're just like going all in. And totally. I remember when I did camp, I felt so alive in that way of like, man, I wish that I could just repeat this in normal life, like, and just be like this. And I get flashes now, but it's like, I think that's one thing when I watch you guys that I get the envy of, or I'm trying to go to bed at 11:30 and I hear you belting, any of the jingles. No, it's fine. There's this feeling in my gut that's like, man, like that's what I want in my day to day, where it's like, it's almost like every day was a part of a musical or something, like just living it up there and not being afraid to do that, So I think that's cool that y'all have that outlet.
Yes, it is really cool. Yeah. To kind of flex those muscles in some ways. Cause my day-to-day job is figuring out like what, 5 1/16 plus 2 7/8 equals, like, and so that's not as exciting and as like, goofy, but then obviously you have this other outlet. Like you're saying that you can release. And honestly, Harry, just become a dad. Honestly, I'm super goofy when it comes to my kids. And like every once in a while I say to them, like, you're going to appreciate this someday, where I'm like singing and dancing while they're,
you don't like this character? Okay. All right. Back to the drawing board.
But camp was awesome in so many ways for that. Cause it's so encouraging. Like they're encouraging like of anything you do, like, cause so much of it's about having bigger energy and having, fun characters that are just like fun because you're doing a character in general. Like anytime there's a character, it's like, that's fun because it's somebody else, but
and you're finding it along the way usually.
And then obviously they're also pushing you to go beyond your comfort zone sometimes,
which is great.
Obviously a very growing experience too. So Yeah, I do enjoy the aspects of camp that we have incorporated into the podcast for
Yeah.
sure.
I got to say really quick, I think my favorite video that you've done is the one that you got to do by yourself when you were on vacation.
Oh, really?
And I think it was
Yeah.
a conservative dad one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Which
And
just sometimes people get too like worked up on that. It's really just like every dad, basically. Like,
yeah,
you
yeah. You
know,
get too much into the like,
the
if
political
or is it trying to
aspect.
make a statement? Is it trying to like, no,
Right.
just watch the character and just
Yeah.
like listen to what he's saying. And it's just,
Yeah.
yeah. I thought that was the best one because it's
Oh,
just,
thanks, man.
and it's funny because it's just you kind of going off
Yeah.
and doing it. But yeah, I thought that was great. So Matt, if you haven't watched that one,
Oh yeah, I
scroll
gotta check
through,
it out for sure.
yeah,
Check it
on
out,
Jean
man.
Shorts.
Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
Well, thanks,
Cool.
man.
Yeah. Man, so I guess now outside of wanting to do stand-up comedy, like, is this something that you would ever want to do full time, or do you like this balance of having your woodworking, being able to do this extra content and flex that muscle? Or ideally, like, are you kind of just riding this wave and you're like, let's go?
Yeah.
You know?
Kind of that last one. Honestly, I'm for better and for worse, I'm not a huge planner in life. Like, because I always say to myself, like, hey, if you would have had to try to plan out your life right now 5 years ago, none of this would have happened the way it did. Like, and so I just try to listen to what God is putting on, you know, like giving me opportunities for, and obviously like being good stewards of whatever I have in front of me, and like trying to pursue and do things well in order to get other opportunities, but at the same time, not necessarily being like, I have to do this or I have to do that. So I think it'd be really hard for me to completely give up my business, because there's something like you know, just an ownership, obvious, like literal ownership. And then also just like, there's something like I've invested so much into it, but I also think I could scale that back pretty easily, and do more comedy stuff. That being said, comedy stuff, if we go, you know, travel a lot, I have to consider my family, because that's obviously a bigger deal than any kind of career for me, is just making sure I have, you know, I'm being a good husband and a good father. And so, I don't know the exact answer. And and Catherine, that kind of doesn't drive my wife crazy, but she's way more like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see us in 5 years?
Yeah. Well, that's because she wants to go to Texas. That's really what that
she's a Texas girl, and she's ready to hear me say like 2 more years, then we'll go. Yeah, or whatever.
We're going.
And I'm just way more like, I just want to listen. I have faith that God has a plan for my life, and God has, you know, a perfect plan for my life. And, you know, I'm not going to worry too much about that. And it's like this hard balance of like, I don't want to just like be like, whatever, God's going to take care of it. But I also don't want to like put anything, like any boundaries on anything, where it's like, well, if Trey asks me tomorrow to go on his stand-up comedy tour next year, and I already have a, you know, 5-year plan for my business, you know, I'm going to say no to that. Like, no, I'm going to consider that, and, you know, kind of flex and flow with whatever happens. So, I don't know. I think ideally I would either, you know, get like, obviously grow this woodworking business into something bigger, or potentially do more stand-up stuff. But I don't know. It's all up in the air right now. And I like it that way. I think that's kind of, I like having a routine to an extent, but I also really like the difference, you know, in life. So
I'm a sorry, I'm a big planner too. Like you said, like I always, from an early age, like I knew what I wanted to do. And as I got older, like into college age, like I was working the whole time I was in college, kind of with the mindset of I knew what I wanted to do. And it was really easy for me to have goals and say, all right, in a year I want to be doing this, in 2 years I want to be doing this, 5 years, you know, 10 years. And then I got to a point where it's just like, I started taking jobs, and kind of the way it worked in the sports world, in the football world. It's like, I tell my wife, like, hey, we could be doing this for 1 year. We could be doing this for 10 years. You never know. And Harrison had to live it. Where his dad had stretches where they were at a place for a long time, and then he had stretches where he did something for 1 or 2 years. And there's that is something that I had to learn how to do, is just kind of letting go and trusting God and his provision and his will would be done in my life and my family's life too. And that's the good thing with what we're doing now, is like we every other job I've taken, it's kind of like, all right, like I said before, like could be 1 year, could be 10 years. Whereas the job I'm doing now, because of the quality of life it's afforded me, like it's kind of like, okay, maybe we do this for a long time. Like
Yeah.
maybe we do stay in this house for more than 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's been a pretty monumental shift, I think, in me and my wife's just kind of mindset, like, because it's really hard to get settled when you just kind of think at some point you're going to have to move.
Right.
And
You're always looking over your shoulder of like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and that's what's
Absolutely.
made this move different than our other moves we've done together.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
um
That's
yeah,
special. Yeah. That's a
but
blessing in marriage too, for sure.
but at the same time, 6 months from now it could be totally different. You just
Right.
never know. But I've kind of learned to embrace the unpredictability of things,
Right.
as we go through life. But yeah, the hope is that we're here for a long time. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And the one thing, Brad, that me and Matt have talked about a lot is with his new situation too, is just what it's allotted for our friendship. Like
Mhm.
we've been able to spend so much time, and just like you and Jake set up is now, like you guys have a lot of time that y'all get to spend together. Obviously, you work together in spaces now, but um, but that's how it's been for me and Matt. So I'm super grateful for that because there were years, when he was either where he was working in Philly or wherever it was, where it's like we might not talk, especially if it's football season. It's like
Yeah.
I would feel like any amount of time would be monopolizing time that he has to use for something,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
You're taking him away from something else more
right.
important or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Sure.
and we talked about it too. Like there were times, mid 20s where Matt's grinding and trying to grow his career and like he's on a trajectory. Um, and then it's really interesting seeing like where we're at now. And he's the father of two small kids and has the situation that he has now. Like you said, like, it's like you could be there with Athletes First for 20 years or it could change, but the
Mhm.
fact that you have that, you're in that space a lot like what you're explaining to Brad is like, that's a great place to be. It's
Mhm.
a lot better than being, you know, feeling unstable and being like, I don't know what we're going to do, what's
Right.
going to happen around the next corner. And
Mhm.
obviously things can change and we trust God and like he does have a perfect plan. But I just think for both of you guys being friends from two different walks of life, like I'm very proud to be both of y'all's friends and just watching the men that you are as fathers and just as friends and people. Um, it's a huge, wonderful example for me to be able to just come alongside you guys and be a part of that too. So thank you both for that.
Yeah, man. Thank you. That's
Yeah,
very kind.
of
That's
course.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely, I mean, over more than anything, I want to be a great husband and great father and obviously a
Mhm.
great friend. So that's the ultimate thing of like, that's where I find comfort is like, I don't care what I do. I mean, I do care what I do in
Right.
the
Of
future, but like,
course.
I don't, as long as I'm glorifying the Lord with what I'm doing and I'm, I don't know, just making sure my family is led well towards him, then everything
Mm.
else is just, icing on the cake for me. So I appreciate it. That's kind words.
Yeah,
That's
of
awesome.
course. I'm curious, do you have any words of wisdom or any advice for me and Matt as we're continuing to pursue our journey? Like, obviously, I think for what I think our podcast and how that goes is maybe
Mm-hmm.
different approach than you guys have,
Mm-hmm.
or like the space that y'all are in. I think for us, it was kind of started as something that, and maybe a lot like how you and Jake started, is like great for us to be able to talk every week. I love that we get to talk about
Yeah.
it every
Yeah.
week, and we get to have great interviews like this. I think ultimately my favorite part of it is getting to talk to cool people and our friends and
Yeah.
like reach a little deeper. I think that's so cool. But yeah, as far as just like, I mean, you've had a lot of experience at this point. Is there anything a little nugget that we could glean from you?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you've kind of already hit on it, but like consistency is so
Hmm.
important, not only in like the quality that you're going to eventually produce with your content, like not eventually, you're producing it now, but like
Yeah.
that you're going to continue to like get better and better the more you do this. But also like for both your fan standpoint and just like your own discipline with this,
Hmm.
like there's never a doubt in my head of like, are we going to record this week?
You
Like,
know,
yeah, and same with
yeah.
like our listeners. Like, there's never a doubt that Monday mornings or Thursday mornings, like it's
Hmm.
going to be there.
Hmm.
And I give 95% of the credit of that to Jake for sure. I
Sure.
mean, I've definitely bent over backwards, to make sure we've recorded on time, and
Yeah. I
so
mean,
is
it's
he.
incredible.
Um,
Yeah.
but he was definitely the one to set that standard. I think, because I think honestly, if he were if he were like originally to have said, hey, I can't do it this week, let's just skip it, I would have been like, okay, I would have just been like easy going, whatever, but I think
Right.
it really is like valuable to our listeners, valuable to you. And I know it's like a very just tangible, easy thing to do, but also an easy thing to like, you're on vacation one week or something. Life can get in the way, but
Mhm.
just trying to figure out ways to get them out every single week is important.
Mhm.
Beyond that, I think, you're already comfortable in doing this already, but I think the more you can just be yourself, just,
Yeah.
I think, and I obviously we try to make jokes and we try to be funny on our podcast, but at the end of the day, I think the people, like, no one that has ever like met me in person has ever been like, your podcast, you guys are so funny. Like, they always say like, you guys, we love like the people that you are. Like, they
Yeah.
say like the deeper thing, like, and so I think, and maybe
Hmm.
initially I was too worried about like, hey, we got to try to be funny, we got to try to do this.
Yeah.
But now I'm just like, no, like, it's, there's certain stories I tell that aren't funny at all, but I'm just like, people want to hear about our
Yeah.
lives, people want to know about us. So I think that's another thing, is just like, in whatever realm you are working, like, just
Yeah.
just be yourself. So
Yeah.
and I honestly love your guys' questions. I think you guys are doing a great job of interviewing people. So I'd say keep that up, and probably
Thanks, dude.
continue to try to get better and better at that, because that's like I listen to a podcast that they interview people every week, and every single one, like, even if it's not that interesting of a person, the questions that they ask are so either funny
Yeah.
or relatable or just like thought provoking, and it's like, okay, that makes me want to
Yeah.
listen to every single
Yeah.
interview, even if it's some guy that I don't really care, even if it's like a tennis player or something,
Right.
whatever.
Which is
No
proof
offense
that
to
they're
tennis,
doing.
whatever.
we don't really talk about tennis on this podcast.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to offend anybody. Yeah. That's not on our thumbnail. We've only got
That's right.
golf, baseball, and football. So
There you
the
go.
big three, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's
but
what
yeah, I
everyone calls
appreciate
the big
that.
three.
That's right. I do appreciate your opinion, because you're definitely somebody I respect in that regard too. Of like,
Thanks. Yeah.
So those words mean a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Man, this has been awesome. Just giving us your time too, with all that you already
Heck
got going
yeah,
on.
man.
You probably, you're gonna have to record Ghost Runners at some point if you haven't already this week.
Tomorrow night. Yeah.
Tomorrow night.
You'll see
So I'll
there,
see you tomorrow night.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, this has been such a blast. And like I said before, you and Jake both have inspired us to just, man, if anything, just pursue, and like,
Yeah.
just, you can't, it's like you literally can't catch fish. Not that we're trying to catch fish, but it's just like the act of it. You can't do anything if you don't do anything.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been a huge lesson that I've watched. And obviously, like, both you guys, and like, being around Jake, just kind of contagious. You're just like around that energy, and you're like,
Mhm.
all right, let's do it. Like, this
Yeah,
is
totally.
in my belly. Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
do it. So.
And I think you're right about like, you can't take for granted the fact that you're now, getting to hang out with Matt every week.
Yeah.
You guys are getting to hang out and do stuff. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't think I would see Jake every week obviously now I'm doing jean shorts with him too, but like, yeah, like, and now we have an intentional time. Like, I don't see you every week, Harrison, but I see Jake every week,
Yeah.
and I would love to see every one of my friends every week,
Of course.
but I don't have those built-in excuses like I do with the
Yeah.
podcast. So I think that's, if anything else, even if it's a struggling time or if it's a grind at times, it's like, well, just remember, like, our friendship is different and better because of this. So that's I think that's a good thing to remember. But yeah,
100%.
man.
Matt,
Yes, sir.
you look like a sleepy dad. How you feeling?
The sleepiness is starting to set in.
It sets in.
It's 10:41 my time.
Brad's just getting worked out. I mean, he could do 3 more podcasts after this.
Well,
He's just settling in.
This is my bedtime though.
let me go get a Diet Dr. Pepper and let's
There
party.
you go.
No, yeah.
Have you started to appreciate the early mornings yet, Matt? Like, are you an early morning guy?
Early morning's always been my thing. I'm usually
Okay.
early morning, and I've become an early to bed guy. But
Yeah.
one of the things, like, when we started doing this, I just realized it was easier to do it after the kids were down.
Yes, always.
So naturally, this is my one night a week where I do stay up past my bedtime.
Right. Yeah. I've probably in the last year really started to appreciate early mornings, just because it's like the one time obviously you can get up and choose to get up before anybody else and have that special time. And that just makes me feel like such a dad, like,
Dude.
appreciating like getting up early. And even if it's like I haven't gotten much sleep, I still want to try to get up early because it's
Yeah.
just so worth it. So
Hey, no pun intended, but don't sleep on mornings. Like
seriously.
for real, like mornings are so great. That time
Yeah.
that you have when nobody else is stirring is just
Oh,
so
it's so
good.
peaceful.
So
Mhm.
so quick dad story. Yesterday,
Yes.
my Sunday routine, I went to Home Depot and
Yeah, baby.
I bought a new mower.
Okay.
I had a
Congrats, man.
smaller mower. Long story short, at my older house, the smaller mower was fine, didn't have much of a yard. And here I need a bigger mower.
Wow. Can't hide
And
money, man. You know?
so I got just like a Toro push mower, but it's like literally twice the size of my old mower. And yesterday I mowed the lawn in record time, backyard and front yard, and I edged all around. And I did it in 2 hours, and a lot of times it's taken me like 2 days. Like
Really?
I'll do the front yard on Saturday and the backyard on Sunday. But so anyways, I did that for 2 hours, and then I got up this morning and I'm just like drinking my coffee, looking out the back window at the backyard, and just like take a sip and just like and I felt like such a dad, just like admiring my freshly cut yard
Totally, dude.
with my new lease on life, with my new mower.
Good for
Right.
you,
Like this
man.
is saving me 2 hours a week. Like
Dum 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 dum
so
dum dum
Yeah.
dum. I'm just doing the Home Depot music in the background.
Yeah.
Like,
so
Dude, that is a great feeling though. It's one of those things that's
such
like
a, yeah.
I didn't care about this and now I care so much. Like what was I doing the other day that this isn't really dad. Man, maybe it's kind of just today. I was filling up my garage fridge, which is a dad move to have a second fridge,
man,
I think.
good for you.
And I was
Yeah.
filling it up with
Right,
LaCroix,
yeah.
and I was so excited about
Yeah.
all the LaCroix options that we have. Like,
Oh,
before I used to think LaCroix was like, just terrible, and now I'm like so excited about LaCroix.
yeah. Which one were
I-
you crushing just now? You got one
We
right there.
got a peach plum or beach plum. I'm sorry.
Oh, beach plum.
I kind of literally was crushing it, but
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
about 20 feet away from my garage fridge, which is full of Polar Seltzer. So right
Ooh.
there with you.
yeah, man, it's great. Like, and it's one of those things where I wouldn't have cared about that before, but now I'm like so pumped.
Yeah.
So
The best was I probably should have recorded this, but the best was me trying to justify to my wife why I needed a new mower. And like I mean, I felt like I was like on the stand, trying to explain to her how much
What's
of a
wrong with the old
difference it was
mower?
going to make. And then
Right.
I think she saw the euphoria that was happening in my head yesterday after I got done. She's like, "You finished?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Did you do the front and the back?" "Yeah."
yeah,
"And
yeah.
you edged?" "Yes, I did all of it." All of it.
As far as
And,
memes go, I
yeah.
love the one that's like he's probably somewhere cheating, and it's just you at Home Depot, like looking at mowers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this thing just like literally twice as wide? Like,
Yeah, it's literally it's a strong, it's more powerful.
yeah,
So I can cut longer, and it's got a bigger bag that I can
right.
don't have
Yeah,
to empty
everything's
the
more
clippings.
efficient.
It's just more efficient. It's just saves
Love it.
so much more time. So
Oh,
That's
yeah,
that's
man.
the essence of being a dad, right? It's just
Yeah.
efficiency,
Totally.
streamlining.
right.
Yeah.
That's
Why
another
would I?
place. Like, I had never been to a Home Depot probably before I was 21 years old. Like, I couldn't have told you how to get around there at all. And now I get like it'd be like supermarket sweep.
Yeah.
If they had a Home Depot version of that, I would dominate
Sprint.
it. Dude. Like,
Yeah.
You're like Ron Swanson when he goes in and the guy comes up, "Hey, can I help you, sir?" I know more than you.
Yeah.
That's great. Have you gotten to know everybody at this point? They're just like, "Hey, Brad, good morning."
They don't know me by name by any means
Okay.
because there's some people that like contractors and stuff go to Home Depot all the time. A lot
Sure.
of my like hardwoods and stuff I don't buy there, but yeah, I definitely recognize the workers and some of them I think I know.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But
We're
yeah,
friends. Yeah.
yeah, right. It's
That's
awesome.
so
I do
great.
have like a desire for Home Depot over Lowe's though. I think Home
Okay.
Depot in our area is
Okay.
just better customer service and cleaner.
Yeah.
So
Me and Abby had that exact conversation yesterday because we went to Home Depot, the one off of Antioch, which
Yeah.
you know where that is by our old house.
yeah,
And then we went to the Lowe's that's over there there's the Price Chopper over there close to where Gunnar and Emily live.
right.
And my impression was, I think the Lowe's is cleaner, or like
Mhm.
it seems more nicer, I guess. I don't know. But then Home Depot also feels like they have more stuff. But
Okay.
I couldn't tell you. So we have a friend, Bob. He's the paint guy at the Lowe's, and I think he
Well,
really,
Bobby.
I think he's keen on Abby. I think that's really the situation. I'm like at some point when they're talking, I'm like, hey Bob, I'm still here, right?
He's just like pushing you out of the way.
Yeah.
Like, stay out of this, buddy. We're talking whites here.
We're talking.
Yeah.
You talking eggshell? You want alabaster? And I'm like, hey now, chill. But so I think that's why Abby's really hooked. But I haven't figured out for myself yet, so I'm excited to.
Well, I will say I do have a strong opinion. I do not like the Home Depot on Antioch very much. So
okay, so maybe that's what it was.
We
didn't get a good vibe.
It's like way too over like run with like the contractors and stuff. So it's just like it's like the Wild West. You can't ever find industrial. No, it's ridiculous. So that one's not the greatest. So
okay. We gotta find the people's Home Depot then.
So all your Kansas City listeners, don't go to the one in Antioch.
Yeah, forget those guys. They don't even let dogs in there. We try to bring Bear in there.
Seriously, I feel like I always see him in there.
I know.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh well.
What's a dog? What would Bear do in Home Depot? Like they have concrete floors. Like I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
He couldn't hurt anything. No, he literally. What's the worst that can happen? He'd probably just injure himself. That's about it.
Dude, that's like a dream of mine. When I have a dog, I'm taking it to Home Depot. Like that sounds awesome.
Like, that's the one thing you're missing, Brad. Honestly, like from Ellis Custom is like you need a shop dog, you need one ASAP.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I'm already worried enough that Bo is going to cause an accident. My son, my 2-year-old, and so I don't. That's the one thing I worry about. If
he's
I got
a
dog
propensity to kind of bang it around.
Every time he walks into my shop, I unplug everything because I'm just like something's going to happen here.
Yeah, stop.
And he bangs his head every time on something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The last thing you want him is to lop off a finger or a toe.
Dude, seriously. And it's like, just how do you even know what the word blood is? Yeah, she's seen it with Bo, flying off a finger or something.
Yeah, man. No. Well, cool. The one thing I think is we hopefully within the next couple of years, and we're doing this, is the more of the dad life aspect is something that I would love to incorporate more into this thing that we're doing. And like right now, obviously, like Matt's carrying the weight of that. We'd love to talk about it, but
let's get going, Harry. Come on.
Okay. All right.
November.
Wasted.
November.
So let's see, November plus 9 months.
Where does that put us? Next summer?
August, baby. Year from today. Hey, today is August 15th. When's your wedding date?
It's the 19th of November.
Oh, 1 year from today. I'm calling it. We're having a baby.
All right. Let's do it. And you can come over and you can deliver it.
Perfect. Yeah. That's
just a little reference. Yeah, it's another day, but we'll talk about that. Brad had to deliver his third baby in his home on the living room floor. So we can talk
good
about
hands.
that another time. Great hands.
Tell the athletes first. I got good hands.
Yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate you doing this again. And we had a blast. And
anytime.
Yeah. We've had a couple recurring guests, but you're at the top of our list. So
come on. I would love it. This is fun. It's just hanging out, talking to people. So
that's right. Well, dude, hey,
and admitting that I don't make my own chairs. That's the only downside of this.
That's the only thing people are going to remember after this episode. I'm going to put that as
you could have lied. You could have lied to me. Like I wouldn't have known the difference.
I'm going to put the title of this is going to be How to Build a Chair featuring the liar Brad Ellis.
Right. You sit Ellis on a throne of lies.
Yeah.
A throne of lies.
Transgressions. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you should just have like a black and white picture of me with like the red lettering fraud over the
fraud. Got him like a political stamp.
Yeah.
Got him.
Exactly. So
that's great.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. It was fun. And
of course.
Yeah, I would love to do it anytime. It's just fun hanging out with you guys.
What do you you got your book right there?
Yeah, Brad, if you ever come to Atlanta, I'll just let you sign this.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Let him sign it.
Yeah.
I don't have that one actually. Have you read it?
Yeah, I have. It's Gumption.
Okay. Yeah.
This is one of those weird scenarios where I listened to the Audible version of this. I bought the book, but I don't think I've cracked open the book actually.
But it's nice to have.
I've listened to the book.
So you've consumed it.
Yeah.
One way or the other.
And it looks good on the shelf. So
no doubt.
Oh yeah, I have his one. I think it's good, clean, fun, and then something about paddling
row your own canoe or paddle your own canoe.
Yeah.
I have that one. That's a good one.
Oh, that's great, man. That's awesome.
Sweet, dude.
Cool.
Well, good deal,
boys.
Brad. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yes,
I'm gonna go pass out. So
you sleep well, man.
All right, boys. We'll see you, Brad. I'll see you at the house tomorrow.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. See you.